Welcome back everybody to GCN's live coverage of the Zwift Racing League Series 4. Today marks the 5th and the penultimate round of this series, and it's a race with a key difference because it's a team time trial. Coming up in just under 15 minutes, the men's teams will be starting, and then the women's event is scheduled to start at 8:15 GMT. Coming up before both of those, we'll be looking at how to ride a good team time trial on Zwift. We'll take a look at the course, the current standings, the favourites, and speak to a couple of the riders and an expert. Hannah Walker, welcome back. How are you?
Good evening, very well. Looking forward to the first and only team time trial of this season.
So am I. Yes, this is definitely one that I'm looking forward to watching and glad I'm not riding, because this could be particularly painful for a few of the teams, all of the teams. Really.
Well, it certainly will, won't it? And it could also shake up those standings with the team time trial. Who's put in the effort beforehand to do the course recons to really dial how they're going to ride the team time trial. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you've noted one team that was out at 6 a.m. this morning taking a look at the team time. We'll talk about them later on. But there really is no hiding today, is there? There's not even any power-ups for the riders. Yeah,
no power-ups for the riders. The only hiding is, of course, the draft from their teammates, the formation of the riders, and that is it. That's your only kind of respite on today's course.
Really important to get that right, isn't it, in terms of the drafting and sticking together as a team in this discipline?
It is, and it's also important that riders don't kick through if a rider's stronger than some of the other teammates, making sure that as opposed to kicking through and upping the pace, doing a longer turn is much more beneficial to the whole team.
Yeah.
So it's about, being honest with the team, with the riders, having that communication throughout.
Yeah, it's about looking after your team as opposed to looking after yourself, isn't it, really? Well, Hannah's done a great job there explaining the team time trial on Zwift, but since Si is just over there by the touchscreen, we should probably throw to him now to give us an in-depth explanation as to the team time trial tactics on Zwift. Over to you, Si.
Well, thank you, Dan. Yeah, I'm glad you haven't just kept me standing over here for no reason at all. Right, just like in the real world, in team time trials, tactics and technique are all important. Not quite as important, perhaps, as raw power, but not far off, as we shall see. Now, first of all, we're going to look at optimal technique. Here we've got Next Esports. Funny that I chose them, isn't it? Now you can see we've got 4 riders all in a line, and when this draft graphic flashes up, we can see that, look, we've got 3 riders being sheltered. We've only got 1 rider on the front putting out maximum power. Now, just like in the real world, to do this takes quite a lot of practice. It's not easy. A lot of communication is needed, a lot of discipline. And one of the most important things is riding to predetermined power output. So you know what it's going to take to ride on the front, which means you also know how much less power you need to put out to ride in the wheels. Because the problems occur when the riders behind start putting out too much power, then you all bunch up. As we can see on this clip here, look, we've got 2 riders in the wind. Basically, they're both putting out too much power. But it's even worse when we pan back and we can see that actually there's been a rider out front all along, and no one has been benefiting from being in their draft. So riding at the right power at the right time is key. Now we'll also quickly look at changeovers. Again, we've got Next Esports. This is Nicky Hoog, who's just dropping back like a stone, it has to be said. That's really important for crisp, clean changeovers. The rider at the front basically almost stops pedaling to allow them to start dropping back, but then crucially, they need to start getting back on the gas before they get to the end of the line, so that they're then back up to speed when they get to the back, so they don't miss that all-important draft cone. Because if you miss that to begin with, you can probably get away with it. You can put a bit of power out and get back into the line. But as the race goes on and fatigue creeps in, there's going to be curtains. So that is absolutely critical. And as we can see here, this is a team getting it all wrong. I would say too many riders putting out too much power, not enough communication. All the teams are using Discord, remember? So that's where the riders are connected. They can all talk to each other. So then we know which rider is going to be on the front at which particular time and riding at which particular power output. When you've got all that dialed, it's easy.
Very good, Si. Thank you very much indeed. Although he does talk a much better TTT than he actually does. Although, to be fair, I think the GCN All-Stars placed 2nd in the Community League for their TTT a few weeks ago with only 4 riders. So maybe Si does know what he's talking about. Right, let's take a closer look at the course that the GCN All-Stars will be taking on tomorrow night and the elite teams in just a few moments' time. It's the Greatest London Flat Route. There's a lead-in of 7.4 kilometres along the Victoria embankment, and once they get to the Mall, they'll take on one full lap of 23.6 kilometres, giving a total distance of 31. As the name of the course suggests, it is fairly flat, but not completely. There are 164 metres of climbing over that distance, the most notable section being Northumberland Avenue towards Trafalgar Square. A right turn after Millbank takes the riders through the underground tunnel which connects central London to the Surrey Hills, and after a short distance there, it's back underground and onto the escalator. That's a short climb, but with a max gradient of 11%, there is the potential for things to go drastically wrong for the teams. After that, it's across Tower Bridge and then back to the Mall to the finish line. And there are 2 time checks along the route, so we'll be able to see exactly how the teams are doing along the way. And it's going to be the 3rd rider from each team that will stop the clock at the finish line. So with most teams starting with 5 riders, you can afford to lose 2, but no more than that. Do you think, Hannah, that anything might change in terms of their home setup for a team time trial as opposed to the points race we've had over the first few rounds?
I think for some of the riders, they might change their view in which they can see their teammates. So as if you are literally riding in a team time trial, you only have one rider in front of you, as opposed to having sort of your normal aerial shot or your bird's eye view shot on your screen. That could be one change. Also, disc wheels as well for the riders in game. Perhaps they would change the wheel setup. So
be more aero.
Be more aero, you know, in turn, be more fast.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, the first person aspect. So you can check you're right on the wheel, or indeed see when you're drifting off it in agony. Yeah. You can see just over here on the wall that a number of riders, most of them in fact, will be warming up for their team time trial at the moment, getting themselves ready. But talking of setups, there have been a few interesting ones that we've spotted over the last couple of weeks, and we thought we'd highlight them now. Let's head back over to side to look at what choices the top Zwifters in the world are making with their equipment.
During the ZRL races, we get to catch glimpses of the riders behind the avatars, but we thought we'd actually have a bit of a closer look at a few of the pain cave setups to show the breadth of where people are racing, the fact that you can pretty much do it anywhere as long as you've got a good internet connection. So we'll start up here with Anthony Van Oppen, Canyon Esports, as you can see. Looks like he's in a modern art gallery, which is lovely, and crucially, by a wide open window to keep him cool. Then we've got his teammate, Mako Verts, clearly a Zwift fan. He's got a mural behind him. How committed is that? And then, lastly on this side, Angela Roberts. Look at that for a pain cave. That is cool. She's riding a Wahoo Kicker bike, which I thought was interesting, and she's also got a bouldering wall for warming up and warming down afterwards. Now, over on this side, we've got Naomi de Pennington, who looks like she's Zwifting from a barn, which is a pretty cool space, isn't it? I like that very much. And then, in contrast, Daniela Estrate is in a much smaller space, but brilliantly, she doesn't have to travel far to get to her washer dryer, so no dripping, sweaty lycra all around the house, which is something that I do on a weekly basis. And then finally, Cecilia Hansen demonstrating real-world problems with her helper there with a fly swat, trying to get a fly out of her pain cave, which is an incident that unfortunately took her out the back of the group. Clearly disrupting her focus slightly. But there we go. What a spectrum. Back to the studio.
Thanks again, Si. Not entirely sure a wardrobe change was necessary in such a short pre-race show, but there you go, such a diva. Anyway, I'm going to throw an extra couple of ones now in terms of setups that I found personally interesting. First up, this is Brian Duffy Jr., who, like many top Zwifters, produces so much power in the sprint, he needed to find a way to anchor the bike to the floor. So he's got it set up on a wooden board with the home trainer strapped down to stop it moving. Meanwhile, Thomas Thrall has opted for a rather more basic method of 20 kilogram rice bags to try and stabilise his turbo trainer. Also of note on this photo here is that he's got straps around his Garmin Vector pedals there, which is something that you often see used by track sprinters with an enormous amount of power. Unfortunately for me, anchoring my home trainer and using straps on my pedals wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to my performance on Zwift at all. Although incidentally, I did receive the results from my Zwift Academy the other day and I have been declared a sprinter by the algorithms, interestingly enough. Probably the bad set, or the worst of a bad set of results, I suppose, or the best. Right, let's remind ourselves of the series standings in the men's event ahead of them kicking off. Next Esports, presented by Enshored, had that perfect score of 80 points after the first 4 rounds, having won every single one. Canyon Esports, who are as yet unbeaten in the overall series rankings of the ZRL, have ground to make up in second place, 7 points adrift, whilst Movistar E-Team and BZR Sports Solid are locked together, a further 4 points adrift. Now, Next Esports have, as far as I'm aware, never done a competitive team time trial before. So with that in mind, Hannah, any chance of them coming unstuck today?
Well, that's in the ZRL. I had been having a look at what the riders have been up to in this past week, having not competed in a ZRL team time trial, and they did the WTRL team time trial on Thursday evening.
Sneaky.
So they've been doing a bit of training beforehand. They've done a couple of recons as well. So they've certainly come here. They know that this could be the evening where they could lose a lot of points to Canyon or BZR Sports Solid, Canyon being one of those teams who's been really dominant in previous team time trials of the past 3 seasons.
Yeah, and they'll be looking to make up points today because time's
sure
running
will.
out. You know, at the end of the day, Canyon Esports want to retain their title that they've had for the previous 3 series. They've got to start today, surely.
And to my knowledge, Canyon Esports haven't done a recon in this past week, at least, between the whole team to do a team time trial. So interesting whether it's been a private group or not.
Maybe, or just overconfidence perhaps. We'll
Who
wait
knows?
and see. All right, well, let's take a look at the lineup for Next Esports tonight as series leaders. Double race winner James Barnes is their mainstay, but they brought 2 riders in for the TTT, the American duo of Scott Cantazzaro and Zach Nair. Canyon Esports, meanwhile, are fielding this squad of 5, with the beast that is Ollie Jones rejoining the team along with Gary Muller. And we were also going to take a look at the PO Auto Ceramic Speed because they've got a really good pedigree in team time trials. They won 2 of them in Series 2. However, illness has struck the team, so unfortunately, they're only going to be starting with 3 riders, which, when the clock stops after the 3rd rider, is not really ideal. You can't have any problems in that situation, Hannah.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for PO Auto Ceramic Speed, but unfortunately, you can't do anything about sickness, and they've just got to make the best of the situation. You can't find a solution. The solution is do what they've done in previous rounds and hope that it won't affect them too much. But they are at a disadvantage, but it'd be interesting to see what they can do on the night.
They're 10th overall in the rankings, and the reason we picked them out is because of their previous TTT performances and the fact that we've not talked about them too much this series. With them down to 3, any other surprise potential teams today?
I think Movistar could do a fantastic ride in the men's race. I think they could go quite well. They're sitting 3rd overall in the standings, or 4th overall in the standings. So I think they could go quite well. They've been doing a recon this morning along with the women's team quite early, 6 a.m., 6:40 a.m. They were up this morning, and that's GMT time.
Yeah. Well, I think Next Esports are going to get another perfect score. What's your prediction?
I'm going to go with Canyon. They're bringing in, their 2 riders, Gary Muller and Ollie Jones. Perhaps they are a little bit overconfident if they haven't done a recon or done any practice this week. But I think, based on previous series.
Well, it would be good to see, wouldn't it, as a partisan supporter, because we want it to be close in the last round next week. Right, they've done their warm-up now. It's time now for me to hand you over to our commentators today, who are once again Matt Stevens and over in the States, Dave Toll.
With an elevation gain of 124 metres. Yes, it should be spectacular. We could see an upset, and to talk us through what potentially might happen today is Mr. Dave Tull. Dave, great to have you alongside me again, and I'm actually very much looking forward to this, should I say, the first team time trial of this season.
Yeah, I'm stoked, Matt, and I have to think that Canyon is as well. Next has been so dominant out here this year that this is really a chance for Canyon to stand up. They're specialists in this team time trial discipline. Now, Next comes in, they're seated last today, and there's a good reason. They haven't missed a step throughout this entire 2021-22 season, and they're here to make their statement, I think, as far as team time trialing goes. This is going to be as an epic of a team time trial battle as we've ever seen. That's for sure. And Matt, looking a little deeper, there's some teams, you want to talk about looking really deep. The almost entirely Canadian squad draft with Ed Veal, Bruce Bird and company, they're going to really look to make their mark out here. BZR, Beast Mode, there's a lot of teams that would like to find the top step. It's going to be really exciting. Next is going to be holding off some fury out here, that's for sure, in London, Matt.
I think you're right. And I think because it's the first team time trial of this season, and we've only actually got one team time trial, it might be that the rankings so far aren't necessarily the best indicator of who can do the best team time trial, because we have had just flat out races, should I say, on a points race format. The first team up are the Kirkmare Racing Team. They're out on the circuit already. And there we go, first glimpse of maybe how to get it wrong straight out of the gates. It's all about keeping together. There's the lineup: Stefan Kirkmare, Johannes Denner, Johannes Recknauer and Felix Ritzinger. The teams are going to be going off at 1 minute intervals. And I think it's fair to say that Kirkmare have had a pretty disappointing season so far, but this is a discipline, Dave, that we know they've done very well on in the past.
Yeah, there's a glimmer of hope today, Matt, for Kirkmare for sure. They were 4th place if you look back in season 2, which is actually getting to be a little while ago, but this is a pretty similar lineup. They were only 41 seconds off of Canyon, who had the winning time there. They could do a top 5 ride today, but they're going to want to tighten things up here a little bit. This is the part of the course that you're going to see twice out here today. Really, there's a 7K sector that you repeat at the end of the races. We'll work our way through London, out into the Surrey Hills, and then back to the finish line. It's a fantastic course. Now, at about 3.5K in, you get your first little kicker. Let's take a look, though, at the draft team as they're out on course. The team starting on 1 minute intervals here today in London. This is the team I was talking about. They could really upset the apple cart. Now, they're sitting down in the general classification, but they have the potential to be on the podium today. Ed Veal, Bruce Bird, Warren Meader, Ross Fawcett, and Ryan Rutherham. 4 of the guys are Canadian: Ed, Bruce, Warren, and Ryan. All very Canadian sounding names as well. And then Ross Fawcett racing out of Great Britain. But this is a team that has a really interesting dynamic. Matt, we say there's horses for courses. Well, this is the horse for this course, no doubt about it. These guys are all monsters, and watch out at that first split. Today we're going to have 3 different time checks before we make our way to the finish line. We'll try to check in at about 7.5K, 16.5K, and 24K out here over this 31 kilometers of racing. But back to you, Matt. That's a good look at the men in red, appropriately the Canadian squad.
Indeed, it's a very, very nice looking formation there. And next up is going to be a team, the Zwift Warriors cycling team. Akeda just on the front there, the team exclusively out of Japan. Remember, these guys are going to be on a completely different time zone as well. Middle of the night for the Zwift Warriors cycling team. Toshiaki Megawawa, Takato Ikeda, Saya Hashimoto, Hiroki Ueda, and Hidenori Susauchi. And these are a team of primarily light riders, and we've seen them go really well on the climb. Some interesting headgear for a team time trial there, Dave. Second place there is riding a Yorkshire Whippet cap. But I tell you what, they're certainly riding very well so far in these early stages. And what this will give us a sense of in terms of the power generally is who's riding on the front. We saw that really interesting display that Simon had, that touchscreen showing you where the draft is, and what we'll see that will play out in relation to the amount of power riders are putting. So Akeda on the front will be putting out probably 30, even 40% more power than his teammates. And he has opened up a little bit of a gap here already. But what they want is one long line. One long line, Dave, is basically optimum for the team time trial. But it can take a couple of Ks for the team to really get settled in and really start to mesh as one unit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Matt. What applies in a real world team time trial would apply to the Fusion team that we're going to take a look at here as well. So back when the WTRL, which is coming into there are about 140 consecutive weeks of racing on Thursday that anybody can do. If you're interested in trying this, please come join on Thursday. There's always an invite for new teams as they're starting to see their numbers grow. But this is a team now, when you look at Fusion here, that is certainly looking great at this point in the race. This is going to be Alex Kalman, two Oscars on the team here, Oscar F and Oscar H, as Oscar Feldos and Oscar Vid, along with Sebastian Rittersgaff and Simon Nielsen. They're all Danish on this team. And the precision really comes into play out here. But Matt, you've raced team time trials in your career. This is not a discipline that you want to come in underestimating the challenge in front of you here, as every athlete's going to go through some tough spots out here. Maybe not at this point in the race, but you really have to figure out how to manage the team. The directors out there, they have a big responsibility, maybe more so than any other day, of not only organizing but motivating the riders. But that's a good look at a team that has as solid of a start of any team that we've seen out here today, Matt.
Yeah, definitely, Dave. No, you are quite right as we still look at Fusion. Next on the grid are D-Pack Elite. But no, you're quite right. The team time trial is like no other event. I remember riding many team time trials in the real world, but I have ridden a team time trial in the WTRL as well for the Zwift HQ Rockets, as we look at the D-Pack Elite squad. So here they are on their on this little run-in, this initial run-in, as you said, Davis, the 7.43 kilometre lead-in, essentially flat along Victoria Embankment, and there is D-Pack Elite's lineup. Steve Firminger, Sam Lindsay and Ed Morgan, as well as the rest of the team. And then we've got Sam Lindsay, Ed Morgan, Ben Jones and Ben McKee. One thing that we were talking about before the start is several teams have 2 or 3 riders, Dave, across men's and women's discipline with the same first name. So they're really going to need to communicate, come up with some sort of code, or maybe use nicknames, because as we've alluded to a lot, they were talking about it on the sofa, this is the one event where communication is absolutely key. Remember, the third rider is the rider that counts in relation to crossing the line, but this is really about coordination, and the teams that do this best aren't just the teams that deliver the power, it's the teams that are best organised. Dave, Toyota are up next.
Yeah, it's so simple yet so complicated. Here's a team to watch. Now, we're talking about WTRL, Toyota Cryo RDT. They do their work, no doubt about it. This is going to be, it's a mixed team. A couple of Americans here, Nick Heard and RJ Cowan. But you've got out of Germany, Laurens Weikert, Eddie Hoel is from South Africa, and Bart van den Eck is the Belgian rider here. This really been the secret sauce for Toyota Cryo, is they have an international campaign, but there's a lot of depth. It's not only deep, but it's wide when you look at the talent on the Toyota team here, and they are flat out pinning it. But I'm going to throw it back to you, Matt. It's nice to get a look at all the teams as they head out on course for 31K of racing today.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Dave. Next up is Restart Racing, 7th off the grid today. They sit 12th overall in the standings. Edwin Boulier of France, Daniel Jamrosic, a very aggressive rider of the US, Dean Cunningham of Scotland, Ian Evans of Great Britain, and Jaden Jaeger, who has represented the United States in the World Esports Championships. Let's have a little look at the stats. Let's have a look at those wonderful picture-in-picture to give us a flavour of the different pain caves, and also an indication of the rider who is actually on the front there. It looks like Dean Cunningham's got a little bit of an issue there, unfortunately. They're already down to 4 riders, so perhaps some sort of technical issue. That is a big shame for the Scottish rider. That's the last thing that you want to do so early on in the race. But next team are off, Dave, and it is Callas.
This entirely Norwegian squad are absolute monsters. As they say in the world of the Vikings, we all need to row at the same time, and that's exactly what Øyvind Loning Bergs, Havad Gjeldis, a previous winner in one of our points races early on in the ZRL, Kestel Ferup, again, all Norwegian on this team, Steen Larsvin and Christian Ofdal. I'm not sure, Matt, which is more challenging, the Norwegian names or the Japanese names, to be honest with you. As there's letters in the Norwegian alphabet that I've never seen before. to be honest. So I'm kind of guessing at some of the pronunciations, but one thing you don't have to guess here, as you can see, Ferrup, he is an experienced rider, a team leader out here, and this Calais team is looking fantastic. They've got a good formation going right now. I'm going to throw it back to you, Matt. The teams are starting on 1-minute intervals as they head out on this course today with 164 meters of elevation to be gained.
It is PO. Thank you very much, Dave. PO Auto Ceramic Speed. They haven't got their full lineup, unfortunately. As you can see from the off, they are down to the bare minimum. So you can enter with 3 riders, but of course it's going to be far more difficult because they're going to be spending a lot more time on the front, far less time, should I say, to recover. Anders Foldager, Joachim Liesen and Michael Knudsen, they are the 3 representatives from PO Auto Ceramics, being a team in the past that has excelled at this discipline. But with only 3 starters, it is going to be very, very hard indeed. Well, we should be coming up to the first split very, very shortly, and that's Kirkmaier just going through. We should get the time on the board very, very quickly indeed. But what I can say from the stats I have, they're at least 15 seconds in front of the second team on the road, Dave, which is Team Draft. So good start already by Kirkmaier. And next up is Beast Mode, powered by Rose. And there you go. There's the men in black and orange.
This team took the ZRL by storm. It's not entirely German, but in this case today it is. And Christoph Thiem is one of the leaders on this squad. David Scott, Valentin Zale, Ole Zils, and Jan Emmerich making up this squad. Don't sleep on Rose Beast Mode, Matt. I know you don't, because this team could not only find the podium today, they could actually win this race. It's going to take a little bit of luck, but fortune favors the brave, and this team has always had a lot of heart. So, Matt, as we start looking at that check, I'm going to expect that this team, for an early team, same thing with draft, you're going to see some of the quicker times coming from some of the first teams out on course, which is relatively rare in this discipline. Let me throw it back to you, Matt, as I sounds like Wahoo Lacole is out on course now.
They certainly are. They are thundering over the first couple of 100 metres. Just a couple of 100 metres in, the full lineup for the team that sit in 8th place on the general classification so far. They've had a solid, if unspectacular, season so far. One of my favourite kits, the full lineup: Hugh Davis of Wales, Will Laverick, Teppo Lorio, who has been a real animator, one of the most interesting looking riders as well. Fearless, always on the attack, Jan Steinman and Ben Russell. That is the full lineup. But a little bit, this is one of the things we will see, and what it will do is give us an indication of the teams that are really, really skilled, the teams that have spent a lot of time riding together, and the teams that get that singular line dialed as we look at Russell, Davis, Lorio Teppo, Jan Steinman and Will Laverick, a real international flavoured team, as you can see by the multiple flags there for Wahoo Lacole. But they do look as if they're getting themselves into a nice formation at the moment. And what you want to see on your screens is that singular line. Riders will be doing, as we've talked about before, they will try and stick to a set number on the front, and certain riders in the team, the heavier riders who can deliver more power, may actually do longer turns on the front while the lighter riders rest behind. Dave, next up for us is Team Swedish Swifters.
We just received a package here in the United States filled with Swedish candy, Matt. How can you not love this team and their energy? As you're going to see, John Verm has been one of the most active riders in the ZRL this season, no doubt. He's going to look to activate this team today with Jimmy Bowden. Again, all Swedes here. Anders Frisk, Johan Noren, and Henrik Öjer making up Team Swedish Swifters. This is an OG team, Matt. They've been around since Zwift got going. I mean, basically, this was one of the first legitimate team programs that was developing at the high level, without any doubt. They're strong on the men's side and the women's side, and this is a team, certainly, as they get rolling here, that it'll be interesting to see how things play out for them today. They could have a great day, or you never know. As in the team time trial, things are always going great until they weren't. So, Matt, the Swedish Swifters, though, another one of the teams that represent entirely one nationality. There's other teams that look around the world for talent, like the next team that you're going to have here, World Elite Swifters, presented by Oral 7 on course.
Yeah, but World of Elite Swifters looks like they're actually down already to just 4 riders from what we see on our screen. The full lineup: Elliot Holton of Canada, Paul Odlin of Australia, Chris Yep of Canada, Franklin Almeida, one of our riders from Brazil, and then the Argentinian Ariel Sivori. But from that image there, one rider definitely has had a little bit of a problem as they try and get themselves into formation as quickly as they can. do those long, smooth turns on the front. As Hannah talked about on the sofa to Dan, it's not about accelerating through. It's all about really, really feathering those pedals and understanding the nuances so you don't create a gap to the rider in front. So you maximize your effort out in front, but make sure that the riders behind have got that draft. But so far, in the early stages of today's race, looks like the world of elite Swifters, although they are clearly down to 4, they're relatively tightly knit. Let's have a look at Saris now, Dave.
Yeah, 4 strong riders is better than having a 5th rider dangling off the back. Let's look at Saris. This is a team of note. They were only 35 seconds off of the winning time that Canyon posted. That time was a 37:45 back in season 2. Expect to see a time very close to that. Not a lot of reasons to think that teams will be able to go much quicker. Now, back at that point, Next and BZR, 2 teams that we're going to be looking at in a moment, really weren't out there. But this is a team, you can see Gavin Dempster right there, the Scottish rider, the winner of the Tour of the Gila in esports, that brings a lot of talent. And they're all guns a-blazing right now, as Gavin Dempster's got the American, Ryan Larson. Also here is, also out of the U.S., Eric Levinson, Great Britain's Mike Cumming, and John Jantz. This team's got depth, talent, they're motivated. Let's see what they can pull off here today. But Matt, I don't know that we've seen another team at this point that looks as good. I wonder how BZR looks.
Yeah, good shout, Dave. Here is BCR, or here are BCR, 5 strong, all Belgians, as we know. And of course, they have Lennart Turgels, who took that superb solo victory last week on those beautiful streets and roads of Harrogate. That was an amazing win. Let's look at the full lineup of this Belgian stream. They are very, very strong indeed. They've got Valentin. Well, that's beast mode powered by Rose. They're already out on the road, as we know. But the full lineup is Matthias Michael Offermans, Matthias de Roos, Lennart Turgels. He's just on the front at the moment, and that's why he's putting out more watts than anybody else. Jasper Seaman and Jasper Paradijn. So unsurprisingly, Turgels is the rider on the front, and you can see that. There's the power. Look at his power hovering at around 6 watts a kilo, 430 watts, and the riders behind him, unless you're actually out of the draft, should be putting out less power. Especially on this particular section. This is one of those little descents through the tunnel, heading away from the city and heading towards the centre, heading towards Westminster, where we will commence those laps around the town. Essentially, this particular route takes us on up and down every single street on the London map. I do love this route. I really, really do. Well, 3rd team from the last to go, Dave. It's Movistar next up.
Yeah, Matt, it's nothing but heavy hitters from here on in as we take a look at, and again, this is an all-star squad. When Movistar basically put their talent recruitment program together, they certainly got all the I's dotted and T's crossed, because Pim van Diemen, one of the most dangerous, strongest riders in the ZRL. You can see he's got the Swissman Daniel Gould with him. Nothing but talent on this team. Jimmy Kershaw there with Miguel Angel Andres. So this is a team that, again, if you're starting in this last group of 3, clearly you've had a strong season up to this point. And I would say at this point now, Movistar is ready to make their mark. They've been there or thereabouts every single moment that mattered. Will they have their one step up to the top of the podium tonight? Well, there's 2 teams that they're going to have to beat to do that, and one of them have been a dominant force in the team time trial. Matt, I'll turn it back to you, as this squad is irrepressible.
As you said, Dave, thank you very much. They are the fastest team on this circuit. 37:45, that is very, very quick indeed. Can they beat that? Only time will tell. But let's have a look at the lineup that this squad have brought to this race. They've got Antoine Notten, Spencer Segerbrook, Gary Muller, Ollie Jones, former Zwift Academy winner, and he will be arguably one of the most important riders in relation to his ability to stay on the front and pull long turns. This sort of circuit, this sort of lap, given the relatively small amount of undulations, will suit the real powerhouses. But of course, you have to ride to the strength of your weakest rider. But they've got 5 strong, one more raw rider than Movistar, who only started with 4. There's a reminder: Segerbrook of the United States, Ollie Jones of Australia. Then we have Vujasan, Muller and Noppen, another real beautiful international flavour to this Canyon Esports team. And remember, because of that spread of those flags, they're going to be riding in different time zones completely. But one thing is for sure, they are one of the most disciplined teams at this discipline out there. Dave, over to you for the team of the season in the men's. It is Next Esports.
That was Movistar. Here they are. So let's go ahead and jump in, because this team has been the gold standard. They're looking to level up and become the platinum standard. They have won every race so far. It's been all points races. This is their first team time trial. I've got to be honest, there's not a lot of question marks around this team, but this is the one last moment where you wonder, can they do it all? Let's highlight this team as they all look to channel their teammate who races with us in the Community League, who is the reigning world champion and world record holder in the pursuit, Ashton Lambie. So let's see. I'm sure Ashton is watching out there somewhere. It's been so fun to have him be a part of this this movement in esports. But this is Nicky Hoog from Switzerland. James Barnes, who's already won twice and has been a breakthrough star. It's hard to believe we're calling New Zealander James Barnes a breakthrough star, but he was one of the first 100 folks to start Zwifting way back in the Jarvis days. You've got the American Scott Catanzaro along with Zach Nair. These two really bring the heat, along with, out of Great Britain, Mark Bruce. That is Next Esport, presented by Enshored. They have been absolute monsters all year long, and the question was, have they been doing their work in the team time trial? Now, they've got a lot of riders on this team in the community, as you'll see them battling with Velocio. This, Matt, not necessarily their forte. Can they be strong enough to muscle this out? They don't necessarily have to be perfect. They just need to have a good day with the depth of the team, and they should be good for first or second today if they can put together a solid. But this is not what you're looking for right now. A small gap between rider 3 and rider 4 out here. Let's tighten that up, as this is the experience, Matt, that we talk about. What do you do in this situation? And you can see they're going to try to weld this back together. Back to you, Matt, as we're in with Next. All teams are out on course.
Indeed, all the teams are out on the course. Fastest time, remember, 37.45. All teams are out 1 minute gaps, but this is exactly what you do not want. They're a dominant team, but coming into this particular discipline, it is very, very different indeed. And they've actually dropped 2 riders now. Catanzaro, should I say, is putting on, well, a real performance here, but he's actually distanced 2 teammates. So what you've got here is a situation, although maybe that was just some images, it looks like they are back in contact, heading towards a pretty challenging part of the circuit as well. They're just running along Victoria Embankment, and shortly they will swing right for the first descent of Northumberland Avenue to Trafalgar Square. As we look at another one of the teams going through this, I think, is World of Elite Zwifters, coming into that first intermediate time check at 7.5 kilometres. Be interesting to see what time they put up so far, Dave, but they're still looking like a nice formation. Completely pan flat, this particular section, but communication absolutely vital. They'll be on Discord, they will be talking to each other, they'll make sure that there's actually a lot of chatter. I've never spoken to other people quite so much as I have done in a team time trial, because if you don't communicate, you fall apart at the seams.
Yeah, and the worst thing you can do is, well, really, there's a couple things. Blow your team up by being the strongest rider and going too hard, or not acknowledging that you should miss this next pull and then ending up having to pull the pin. So when you look at it, Matt, this sector here, there's about 2.5 kilometers where it is, as you said, pan flat out here. In the States, we say pancake flat. So somewhere along the way, we added a little flavor to that. But again, flat is flat. That's BZR that we're looking at now. World Elite Zwifters, a team that's got a lot of experience. This is a team that just has horsepower for days out here, as we're going to be. Jasper Peredains is one of the riders that's really come on strong. I wouldn't say come out of the woodwork, but this is a community team that was not racing in season 2 when we talk about that Canyon win with that wickedly fast 37.45 time. Second that day was Pio Otto, but Pio Otto has been really hit hard the last couple of weeks. Some of their riders have been sick. They're bringing back Anders Voldagger, both Knudsen and Fulldager were on the podium at the World Championships, and they're going to be ramping back up for that. But Fulldager was in a little bit of a break right now after a long road season. He had to be called back into duty as it was just all hands on deck for this one and only team time trial here in the 21-22 first race of this three-season block. So almost all of the teams now have made their way through that the first check at 7.5K. 16.7K is the next time, and that'll give us a really good look at who to watch for the finale as they head out right now on their way through. I got to give our game designers a pat on the back for a genius pull with the tube sector that takes you from London out into the Surrey Hills. That tube doesn't exist in real life, does it, Matt? If it did, I would imagine it'd be quite active.
I think that this is where the artistic flair, the artistic license of our designers really comes into its own, because these roads, especially the roads around London, the roads around Richmond Park, which represent Surrey, that little tube section, as we look at Movistar on our screen, essentially allows us to sew Surrey and central London together, because in real life they are a little bit further apart. But that essentially is a little bit of a flavour of what a tube underground station actually looks like, which is really good. Well, we've got some stats through here on intermediate split number 1, which comes at 7.5Ks. Wahoo Lacole have gone through quickest so far with 9:25, which is a big surprise. We said they could do something special. We knew Kirkmare would do a good ride, but they're equal on time with Saris and the same time as BZR Sports Solid. Well, Dave, very tight indeed at the top. But what can Movistar do? Because that is an exceptionally good, if slightly surprising time by Wahoo Lacole, who clearly are absolutely dialed, but it is early stages. Have they gone out too fast? Well, only time will tell.
So taking a look, obviously PO Auto ceramic speed starting with 3 is going to be a huge disadvantage. This is going to be Canyon that we're in with now. That's Ollie Jones that we just saw. So we're going to be watching closely now Canyon Esports and Next. Let's see how quickly they can come across that line. Canyon just about to stop the watch here at 7.5K in. Next we're looking at now, there's New Zealander James Barnes. New Zealand, Paul Odland. They are all over this race out here today. New Zealand's certainly a nation that punches well above its weight in the world of esports. And I'd say Barnes has been just a phenomenal star to see really come into his own out here this year as part of this Next Esports Enshored program. Well, that seemed like a lot less than a minute to me, Matt. I have a feeling that Next is, they got the bit between their teeth right now. They're galloping here in the early going.
Yeah, it's just worth just reminding everybody at home watching this. First up, thanks very much indeed for tuning in. Hope you've enjoyed things so far. But the times that you're seeing on the top right, or the right-hand side of your screen, should I say, are only provisional. But let's see what the team in green, the dominant team so far, but Wahoo Lacole leading by 4 seconds over Kirkmare, who are tied on time with Saris and BZR. But look how far down some of the other teams are. Movistar E-Team way down. Remember, they're the team that is actually 3rd place on the general classification. We've seen this before We've seen this before in the past, Dave, haven't we? When one team, although they've been ranked very highly, if you get it all wrong in a team time trial because of the point structure, remember, 20 points for the first team, 19 for second place, and then 18 points for 3rd place. If you really have a bad day, which is completely inconsistent with your previous performances, you can tumble down the rankings. And from what we've seen so far, as well, Next Esports, well, 1 second ahead of Wahoo Lacole. Very close at the top, but Next Esports so far are in pole position yet again. That's despite what I thought was quite a fractious start, but they're carrying a lot of speed here, Dave.
There is not a large gap between Next right now and PO Auto, to tell you the truth. We've got a lot of racing ahead of us here, and this is neck and neck. Wahoo Lacole, exceptional start to this race. And we were talking about Kirkmare, how it's been a tough season. They deserve a lot of credit for having both the men's and the women's program, and the depth of these programs is if you watch on Tuesdays as our community racing, same course every week as the community has been the building blocks. A lot of these teams like Next were racing in the community just the previous season before they were able to be promoted. We're into that right now, into the tunnel here as we're with Kirchmeier. This familiar black and yellow kit is the team of the Austrians and Germans, and there'll be a Swiss rider sprinkled in there just to keep things neutral. Stefan Kirchmeier, the team's namesake, Johannes Denner, Johannes Rechenauer, big talent, Felix Ritzinger, and they're having a fantastic day. Again, they were fourth on this course when we raced here in season 2, and well, this looks like no fun right here, Matt. This will put a sting in the legs.
It certainly will. It's a really, really steep slope as they just kick out of here. Very, very steep indeed. And well, they've only got around 7.5 kilometres to go. And there you go. Well, 20 Ks to go, should I say. Well, that doesn't quite add up. But Rechnauer just on the front there. Remember, Kirchmeier, Denner, and Rechnauer, Ritziger. Yeah, apologies for the little stat there. Yeah, as we just take a little bit of right turn, but that's a very, very steep little climb. And that's where you really need to impose discipline. That's where it's best to go up. It's steady. Make sure everybody's on board, then pick up the pace and build it up like you would in real life, because it's so easy, given the various states of fatigue as we head back over London Bridge. You can just see the city. You just see the gherkin over there on the left-hand side. Just to throw it back to you, Dave, a real nod to the amazing design of this game. It really is like being in London, and there it is. There is this is Tower Bridge, should I say, and you can just see the Tower of London on the left-hand side. Only 8K to go now for the German-Austrian squad.
We had a great talk pre-show about London. This course, wasn't that where some of the princes were locked up there, the Tower Jail?
It was,
right,
yes,
right.
Indeed, yeah.
So there we go. That's got us back on the odometer at 7.7K to go. There's 164 meters of elevation gain on this course. It's not completely flat, but again, these really strong world-class teams just motor through this 31 total kilometers of racing. And Kirchmeier's having a day today. The very first team out on course has set some benchmark times out here, as again, Kirchmeier, Denner, Rechenauer, Ritzinger bringing it home with less than 7.5K to go. So this, Matt, they've already ridden this part of the course as the Northumberland Ave. They've got one more pitch here. It's about 400 meters at 4% where they can come undone. I love this heat map showing you the draft. A lot of folks wondering. It is incredibly realistic. Matt, you've done team time trials in real life. You've done them here on Zwift. It's very similar, isn't it?
It really is. If you get right into that description, you really do feel the benefit. We just saw the rider on the front, Johannes Rechnauer. Look at the power that he's putting out in comparison to his teammates. At least 150 watts more in that. Kirchmeier now is sitting back. You can see Kirchmeier right in that draft, 370, but his teammate Rechnauer, another 140 watts. That's how much you save. So when you've done a turn on the front, you can actually afford very, very briefly to almost freewheel, drop back into the draft behind. Ritzinger is rider number 3. The only need to finish 3 riders, and quite often the teams will use somebody up. They'll expend somebody to really, really dig deep, do a humongous long turn on the front, and then leave it to the 3 riders out in front to go clear. But this is a team we thought would be dangerous. Say it again, they had a disappointing season so far, but boy, are they making amends today as we look back at Team Draft Day, all of them with disc wheels in.
Yeah, I'm going to say take those split times with a grain of salt, to tell you the truth, because I think draft might be a little better than what we think, as these guys are flat out pinning it like a Ferrari hightailing its way around London right now. Again, that's going to be Bruce Bird. Bruce has been one of the active riders in the ZRL, but it looks like the Zwift Warriors here are just about to make the catch. I have to color me surprised here with 3 riders that they're going to catch the Canadian outfit here. But Zwift Warriors are looking like they're just about to do exactly that. This is the first catch that we've seen here in London, Matt. Credit to the Zwift Warriors, the Japanese team.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the 3 riders catching 4, and we did tip draft. I mean, they are doing an absolutely, monstrous ride here. But the gaps I'm seeing, they are riding. Sosachi, Ikeda, Hashimoto are riding at around the same pace as Kirkmare at the moment. They are bang on 2 minutes behind them. So they're 2 minutes further down the road. They've caught their minute team in front, Team Draft, but they are bang on 2 minutes behind. So at the moment, Team Zwift, the Zwift Warriors team are pretty much bang on the same time as Kirkmare. So we're in for a nail-biting finish for some of these earlier teams. And there it is, the catch has been made, and they have, spun them around in their slipstream, and they continue to press on. And there we go. Look at that. 1 second in it, Dave. Kirkmare 30.42, Zwift Warriors 30.43.
Wow, well, that proving the adage, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the fight in the dog right there. As these 3 Japanese riders just rolled by the draft team here. That's a big moment in that team's history here. Again, racing in Tokyo, it's 3 o'clock in the morning there. The commitment that we've seen from the Japanese at the Zwift Warriors team has been one of the most impressive throughout the entire ZRL.
It certainly would. They've really come to the fore. But I tell you what, Dave, I've never seen them. We've seen them perform well over the last couple of seasons. Really aggressive in their racing, but I don't think I've seen them perform quite so well compared to a very, very good team time trial team like Kirkmare. That's a really good benchmark. Although Kirkmare haven't had a great season so far for various reasons, we do know they have got real history, real pedigree in the team time trial. And for Zwift Warriors to do so well, that is absolutely amazing. But let's focus right now on Fusion. Only 3 riders left at the front, and they'll go through that final check at 24 kilometres, and that'll be interesting to see what they have done. But I think they're at least 40 odd seconds behind, going through that split very, very shortly. The 3rd rider, remember, is the rider that counts. So Kalaman is just in front there. He's got a teammate just on his wheel, but then it's the next rider that will actually count. So there we go, Fusion. It's saying that 21.25. Again, take that one with a pinch of salt.
We're in with the D-Pack squad now, 5 together at this point. We're looking at that the second split there. So it looks like they're calling that second split 2 is the 24K split. So I apologize. We were talking about a 16-kilometer split. So 24K in is where that time of 30.42 was taken from Kirkmare. Zwift Warriors with 30.43. Let's take a look at Toyota Cryo here. And they've got 5 together here as well, Matt.
Yeah, they certainly have a real solid unit there, especially so deep into the race. We quite often see at this point teams fractured. They've been through the London streets, back into Surrey, out again. And now the team of Cryo RDT are looking pretty good. Very, very organised indeed. Lars Witcher, Nick Rowe, Rai Konman and Eddie Hull, and then Bart van den Eek, all looking pretty good. So the more riders you've got together, the more possibility of keeping that pace nice and high. So I'll be very, very interested to see what Toyota Cryo RDT can do. But again, they weren't troubling the leaderboard on that first intermediate split. But what they do have is strength in number. And I tell you what, that formation suggests to me that they are riding very, very well indeed. Just give this result a couple of moments to roll through as we go back now to restart. Remember, those intermediate splits are only provisional. But Dave, over to you as we look at a restart.
Yeah, for the teams, really, you're so focused on what you're doing. And again, this is restart here in the green, down to 3. As looks like we're updating things. Zwift Warriors with that 30.45, confirming that they're on an incredible day out here today. We'll bump Kirkmare down into second, 4 seconds off, and then Toyota Cryo, who just came through at 12 seconds back. Still waiting to pick up a time from BZR, Saris, Swedish, and this team here, restart. Little ragged right now as they'll look to get this back together with 3 riders. Just want to stay as efficient as you can out here.
It is pretty hard when you've only got 3 riders left, especially if 1 or 2 riders are struggling. Sometimes there can be a really big disparity between not so much strengths of riders, but the condition that the riders is ridden. And remember, many of these teams are spread all over the world as well. As we look back down the road to Callas, who have 4 riders left in the mix. Callas, we know, are a very, very strong team indeed, but not perhaps performing as best as they have over the last few seasons. They're the 8th team off today. They're 11th in the rankings. But what we have seen, because this discipline is so different, this 5th round of 6 will give, certainly from the results we've seen so far, the provisional results, plenty of opportunity to vault right up the rankings and put themselves back into the frame, Dave, in the final round. So this is this could be far more critical and potentially pivotal in relation to the overall than we imagined on it.
Yes, I'm wondering now as we make our way deep into this 31K, how is Next faring against Canyon out there? It's been all season long that PO Auto has been waiting for this day, and certainly having some riders coming up sick, as they actually had to scratch 2 riders this morning here. They still have some very strong guys, but Matt, starting with 3, you're already on a back foot, and the teams that are charging this course, they're just not going to give any mercy out here.
No, certainly not. Again, just checking some of the provisional results or some of the timings I have out on the course. Again, unofficially, Next are going a little bit quicker by around 10 seconds, 8 to 10 seconds quicker than Canyon Esports at the moment. But please just bear that's just me working things out a little bit. We need to make sure they cross those intermediate split times to give us a real sense. But Zwift Warriors, 4.12 seconds, the fastest team at that split, that second split. Split number 4, 24 Ks. Toyota at 12 seconds, restart at 16. But there's some big teams that's still to come who are moving around this London circuit very quickly indeed. But so far, what can the Zwift Warriors do? The thing is, because this is being streamed, the teams will know what the other squads are doing as well. So Kirkmare, after being overtaken by the Zwift Warriors in terms of time, not out on the routes, will really be digging deep now, Dave, because we know how disciplined that team is, how focused they are, how good their track record is. But no way would they have expected the Zwift Warriors to be 4 seconds quicker than that's for sure.
Yeah, I was corrected. It's actually 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure if that's better or worse, to tell you the truth. Would you rather stay up all night and race or start early in the morning? I suppose it depends on your personality type. But I am hearing now over comms that beast mode is closing down on this team. Let's see if that is true or not, but apparently beast mode is starting to lift the pace out there right now. We'll try to confirm that for you. I certainly would imagine that at this next split we'll certainly have a better idea for what's going on out there. But PO Auto again fighting with just 3 riders out here.
Beast mode coming through now, just passing through. Yeah, sorry Dave, they've just rolled through that intermediate split. Now, PO Auto ceramic speed, after finishing second in this in the past, well off the pace at 1 minute and 18 seconds. So BZR Sports Solid will get their time through very quickly, but a big spread. Well, there we've got Wahoo Lacole now have moved up to post the fastest time. 26 seconds, Dave, 26 seconds. These times are provisional, but that is a very good indicator. That, by far, has to be one of the best rides of the season so far for the men in purple.
I think that's going to tell us a story of 2 different levels of racing out here as well, and Wahoo Lacole is going to be into that top group without any doubt. That's going to be Wahoo Lacole making a catch right now, as a matter of fact, as things are starting to really tighten up, and I believe that is the black of Rose Beast Mode, who were closing in themselves on the team just a minute ahead. All 5 together now. The very popular Teppo there with the headband. He's become an institution out here. More than just a bike racer, he's a lifestyle as we look at Wahoo Lacole opening the throttle up right now.
Oh, this is an amazing ride as we head back a little bit further down the road now to Team Swedish Zwifters. Don't think they were that high up the leaderboard earlier on, but we're going to go through that split at 24 kilometres in just a few metres time here, just to the east of the city. This is the heart of the financial district in London. They've still got around 7 Ks to go as our first, well, that was a finishing effort, draft, I think, of a team draft, Dave, as we look a little bit further down the road and watching a 5-man, they've got the complete roster still here. An amazing performance by Wahoo Lacole, Huel Davis, Will Laverick, Teppo Loro, Jan Stedman and Ben Russell are about to make the catch. And as far as we know, the provisional timings are saying these are the fastest men out on the circuit so far, and they are ripping up this virtual tarmac, and they are about to catch a very, very respectable team. Russell now takes that turn on the front, and boy, they are moving. Look, 7 watts a kilo there, 440 watts, and just look how much less the other riders are doing in his slipstream. This is a absolutely fantastic demonstration of how to ride a virtual team time trial, Dave.
And straight through as well. Howell Davies is a monster. Will Laverick, Tepolorio, Jan Steinman, and Ben Russell on a great day today. You've got to think this is a top 3 ride that Wahoo Lacole is putting together here.
Well, this is Team Fusion just coming in to their finish down the red tarmac of the mall in the shadow of Buckingham Palace. The Union Jacks to the left and to their right, but all they'll be thinking of is getting out as much as they can. There we go, first team at the moment, Kirkmare. Zwift Warriors in second at 8 seconds. Wow, there we got to come back by Kirkmare. What can this team do? Fusion crossed the line. Solid ride by them, but Kirkmare overhauled Zwift Warriors in the end as we look at Deepak now, Dave.
Yeah, Deepak's going to bring this one home. You can see the finish gantry right there. And this is where you just go into full-on sprint mode. That time of, well, 40:28. I'm going to hold off on that a little bit, as I think we're going to see that Kirkmare's down in that 39s. Again, the fastest time that we've seen on this course in ZRL racing is a 37:45, the time, taking off the third rider's rear wheel here. And this is going to be it. No worry about that gap there. They've got their finishing time.
Yeah, well, there we go. Cryo now just rolling down the finish. Look at that, all blocked across the road. So perfect, almost perfect team time trial formation as they just start to pick it up. That was almost looked like there was a little bit of regrouping as they head down into the mole. That final gentle meandering left-hander, and the finishing straight will open up before them. About 350 meters to go now for Team Cryo, or Toyota Cryo RDT to give them their full name. Lars Richard, Nick Hurd, RJ Cowan, Eddie Ull, and Bart Vandenbrecht just about to cross the finishing line. Very, very solid performance by the men in white and blue, and their team time trial here in London will be over in just a few moments' time. There we go. And they cross the line, and the clock, mercifully for them, stops.
Well, the real battle commences now as we move into the top teams out on courses. This is going to be Havard Jelness bringing home his Callis team now. These are finishing times that we're looking at. So Toyota Cryo now moving in with a 39:48 as our fast time. They'll be in the hot seat here. Callis looking to better that. Ovind Loning Bergse, Havard Jelness, Ketstel Ferup. And they're at 1K to the line now.
Yeah, good bit of riding, solid bit of riding by Callis here. Just coming in to that a little bit further to go for this squad. They're just at the top end of the mile. They'll have Buckingham Palace just to their right-hand side, but no time for sightseeing from the Norwegians, who are looking very, very good. Strong team. Again, just outside the top 10, but a good performance today. And if they score enough points, that could move him back into a place on the overall standings that they're far more used to. And there we go, rounding this corner. There's the gates of that beautiful palace and the park surrounding it, and they are now into that finishing straight. 4 riders left for the team from Norway, all looking good. They perform well at world level, of course, of this squad, and that's a pretty decent looking formation as they head into the finish now. Jednes now takes things up on the front, right, sprinting, getting as much out as he can, but that's a pretty decent formation. Looks like third rider across the line for them will be Farup, and the Norwegians across the line there will get that time to you as quickly as we can.
That's a couple of teams, Matt, showing some good form out there by having one rider just off the back. That rider took a long, hard pull before dropping the team up to get the best possible time. And it's one of those counterintuitive things. If you don't follow team time trialing closely, you might think, well, wouldn't you rather have all 4 together? And no, one rider being able to give them another half second or so as we're in with Wahoo Lacole having a great ride today. Let's see if they can finish this off in style. Callis does have the fastest time now, Matt. I'm seeing it's updating with a 39.39. So 6 seconds quicker. Very close to have 3 teams within 10 seconds of each other here at the finish. But it'll get a bit quicker than this, I would think. Maybe not than this, what we've got with Wahoo Nicole here.
Oh, definitely. They're just going up, rounding that top corner and heading back down. This is where it's only a slight slope. This is where Churchill, back in his days, to walk up here and go for his walks. But this team have already overtaken the 2 teams in front of them. I'm expecting a very, very fast team. But provisionally, at the moment, it is Canyon Esports with that time of 39.39. Not anywhere near as quick as the fastest time on this circuit. Remember, it's Canyon in Season 2 who have the fastest time of 37.45 around about a year ago or so. But Callas looking quick. But if there's one team so far that we've seen in terms of the times that could do something special, it could be this squad. And they have really, really impressed me today, Dave.
Yeah, Ben Russell is going to try to drive the final nail home here as Wahoo Nicole. If we look forward, they're just going to see that gantry, and there it is. The suffering ends at that moment. They've dug very deep out here. Hal Davies, the Welshman, going to take over on the front. There's Jan Steinman, the German, coming through. They should be very proud of this effort today. It'll be interesting to see how this stacks up.
It certainly will. Just coming into the last couple of 100 meters now. The finishing gantry is just in front, though. Lorio just at the back there, out of the saddle, trying to get that last little bit of effort. Remember, it is the 3rd rider that crosses the line, and that will be Ben Russell, number 99 there, but not far behind. Well, as we flick back down to World of Elite Zwifters, and again, we're now looking at another team a little bit further down the road, just coming in to finish. This is a couple of teams as well. A couple of teams actually seem to merge there. Yeah, BZR and a Restart, sorry, Dave, and Pia Auto all coming together on the road there. And they were 8th place for Pia Auto there at 2:14. Still leading, though, is Wahoo Nicole with a 38.51, Dave. That is a very, very good time indeed.
Yeah, remembering that Pia Auto, they're the team in green that finished, started with only 3 riders today, keeping that in mind. 38.51 for Wahoo Nicole, getting closer and closer to that Canyon time from Season 2 of 37.45. This is Eric Levinson. He might be done here, Matt, finishing up his pole, and I think he's going to let the guys go get a time for well, no, he's coming back through. I thought maybe he'd finished with his last effort, but he's going to throw a few more punches.
It certainly is. It's the Saris team we're looking at. Ryan Larson, Gavin Dempster, the aforementioned Eric Levison, Mike Cumming, the Brit, and John Jantz. And they're about to catch another team just in front of them as well. So another catch. We've seen several catches being made today. They're going to catch World of Elite Zwifters. 1 kilometre to go for World of Elite Zwifters. And they're around 50 metres in front of the team that it looks like is going to make the catch. That's an ideal carrot to be dangled in the finishing straight.
Sure is.
Just gives them that a little bit of a lift, doesn't it? 38.51, what a time that is by Wahoo Nicole. But what can Saris do? They've performed well in this discipline in the past. Can they make the catch before the finish here, Dave?
Yeah, you couldn't ask for a better situation for your last kilometer to be closing in on one of your competitors. You're not going to find a higher level of motivation than that, as this one is just about done and dusted for a couple of teams out here. A lot of folks on the edge of their seat right now wondering, is Next going to be able to pull off or continue this perfect run here through this season? Looking to make it 5 for 5 today, but they're going to have to upset Canyon, who come in as the specialists in this discipline, Matt.
Yeah, they certainly do. Canyon, the fastest on this circuit. Wahoo Nicole with the best provisional time so far. Swedish Zwifters with 40 seconds adrift as 2 teams almost merge into one 9-man team as they cross the line there. That was World of Elite Zwifters and Saris finishing essentially in a blanket together. We will get you those times as quickly as we can, but let's move a little bit further down the streets of London to the fastest team in ZRL history on this particular circuit. And importantly, Dave, they have still 5 riders, 5 mightily strong riders. A reminder of that lineup: Noppen, Segerbrook, Muller, Jones and Vujasan. But we're looking right now at the 3 riders left for Team Movistar. What can these three riders do? We know Hannah was talking about both the men's and women's team doing a really early morning daybreak recon. Hopefully it'll do them some good, but with three riders, that's going to make it just that little bit harder, Dave.
And they've had a great season as well, sitting in third in the overall right now. And they don't want to give up a spot, that's for sure. They've got BZR and Saris hot on their heels out here. So again, this is Movistar. That BZR is who we're with now. They've got the finish line right in front of them. So this one is just about done and dusted for the Belgian team here as they're going to bring it on home. Three riders, that's all they need. I have a good feeling about this time here, Matt.
Yeah, De Roos is the first rider here. Just rolling by him now is Lennart Turgels. And the other rider there who looks like he might be third across the line is Paludan. They're the three riders. So the riders to count will indeed be De Roos. Three riders left for BZR Sports Solid. Remember the winner of the individual round last week, as we're looking at the solitary figure of Pim van Diemen, moved across from the Dutch Swifters to Movistar. Three riders left in the mix here. But Canyon, we believe, we understood, have already gone past Movistar and are tearing up this red tarmac down the mall. Five riders strong. They're absolutely flying. What time can they do? But the team behind them, Next Esports, a minute back. Well, one more little turn to go. There's the kilometres to go board. They'll swing right 180 degrees, if I can get my degrees right, Dave. And it's going to be 1 kilometre to go for Canyon Esports.
Well, they certainly put it all together out here today. This is going to be incredibly exciting as there's only one team behind. Well, actually, now that they've made that pass, there's two teams behind them as New Zealander Ollie Jones is going to press on here now. It's all hands on deck for Canyon. They have been dominant in this discipline. They've been the strongest team. If you look on the body of their work, they've been the kings of the ZRL. And today, the Empire's hoping to strike back against Next. But four riders together. They've had a phenomenal ride out here today. Will it be enough as they kick it into a higher gear now? One last surge to the line here for Canyon Esports. So will they be able, I wouldn't call it an upset in any way, shape, or form, as they're really looking to defend their turf right now. Finish line is in sight. This one's about to be put paid. Spencer Segabrus got to be happy with the ride he had today. And there he is, the Duck, Lano Viasen, up onto the front. Yep. You can see this time going to come off with the third rider here. So Canyon coming across the line, Matt.
Indeed, Canyon absolutely flying down the mall here. The gantry beckons, 50 metres to go for Canyon. Dominant in the past, the fastest, but will it be the fastest today? Saris 38.33. There's Movistar. They're the penultimate team out on the course, but of course they have already been caught by Canyon Esports. But a very bold, brave performance by the three solitary riders from the Spanish esports team. Movistar's race is now done and dusted. They're certainly not going to win this one. Who will? Because the last team out on the road are Next Esports. You've already used the Star Wars analogy, Empire Strikes Back. Is this going to be a return of the Jedi? Is it the return of Next Esports? I think they're going to do it. The four men in green thunder across the line like TIE fighters. I think they might have got this one, Dave.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I think that they did enough. We're going to have to go to the data and make sure we circle back and get it right, but there you have it. A 38-23 taking the win for Next Esport presented by Enshored. Team Saris comes through only 10 seconds back. What a ride for Saris here today in second. Canyon Esports 27 seconds back in third. Matt, that's your top three as I throw it back to you.
Thanks very much, Dave. I think we both need to go for a lie down. An absolutely spectacular ride there for Next Esports, making it 5 from 5. Let's have a little bit of a debrief on the sofa with Hannah and Windan. But there it is, Next Esports, 100% record. Saris, wonderful ride in second there. Canyon Esports have to be happy with a podium. But back to you guys in the studio. Well, to break things down and have a look at exactly what happened here on the streets of London.
Well, you can have a lie down, Matt, but it's only for about 90 seconds before you'll start introducing the women's teams ready for their team time trial. It's coming up very shortly indeed. We'll pick apart everything to do with the men's race after the women's event later on in the post-race show, while Hannah will rejoin me on the sofa. But Team Saris there, almost causing a big upset by winning the team time trial, but ultimately just 10 seconds shy of the time of Next Esports, who continue their perfect run. 5 rounds and the full complement of 100 points. Not unbeatable statistically at this point, but it's looking very tough for any team to top them on the final race of the series. Right, we'll move on to the women's race now. I'll give you a quick reminder of how things stand going into round 5 in the team time trial today. Still Heino Racing at the top. They've got a 5-point lead over the Aeonian Race Team, courtesy of 2 second places in the first 2 rounds and 2 wins in the subsequent rounds. Third place, just 1 point adrift of Aeonian Racing, is Canyon Esports. They sit on 72. 2024 and Beast Mode, powered by Rose, are 4th and 5th respectively. Movistar, despite finishing 4th in last week's round, are still down in 9th overall, and that is because unfortunately they were unable to start and compete in round 3 of the series. So it's time in a few moments to hand you back over to Matt and indeed Hannah Walker, who's already hot-stepped up to the commentary box ready for the start of the women's race. Fewer teams, but it's going to be just as close at the very top of the table, I am sure. Looking forward to this one, but for now, I'm going to hand you back over to our commentators for what should be another very exciting race.
Thank you very much indeed, Dan. Yes, I didn't go to bed. I've stayed in my chair and I am rocking and ready for this round 5 of the ZRL, the Zwift Racing League, and it is the women's race. It is the team time trial on the course of the the greatest London flat, should I say. Total distance today of 31 kilometres, a relatively modest elevation gain of 124 metres. But this is going to be very, very tough indeed. The fastest ever time on this course, 41.05 from Team Heino. And I think it's about time to bring in my co-commentator to have a look at what's going to be happening today on the streets of London and the roads of Surrey. It's Hannah Walker. Hannah, great to have you back alongside me. Interesting men's race that we had before. Will we see things go to form in this race?
Hello, Matt. Yeah, it was really interesting, wasn't it? And it was constantly and ever changing at the top of the leaderboard when you saw the intermediate time splits. Then come the finish line. As Dan said on the sofa just then, Team Saris 10 seconds adrift from Next Esports, and really impressive that they've not done a race in the ZRL within the team time trial. They have done a lot of recons and practicing during this last week, racing in the WTRL team time trial to make sure they've got themselves dialed. So really interesting to see that they pulled it all together on the night when it really mattered, to give them the full complement of points tonight with the 20 points.
Indeed. Well, in the men's, as I said, 5 wins from 5. It's been a little bit different in the women's. We've had really mixed races. The dominant team are Heino, but both Aeonian and Canyon have won rounds. Who is going to be the quickest on this really, really interesting circuit? Not much elevation, but a couple of key points on the circuit where things could split. Third rider to count and the first team off are the Kirkmare Racing Team. They sit 12th on the overall standings, and they are the first team out on this course. The teams go out at 1-minute intervals. And next up will be Enshored, but let's have a look at the lineup here. Stina Mick, Lisanne Naumann, Hannah Colling, Hannah Borschgein, and Charlotte Kirchhoff. That is the Kirkmare Racing Team. It's all about trying to ride to your slowest rider, in fact, and making sure you get the most out of everybody and using the riders as best you can to their strengths. So the heavier, stronger riders on the flat who can deliver that raw power will be at far more an advantage, on the assumption they're in good form, of course. There are other things that can play out. But on these early stages, it's about trying to settle into that rhythm, keep that communication going, Hannah, isn't it? Because we know there's a lot of communication in regular races, but arguably, and from my experience, this is where it's almost constant, isn't it? It's you're almost speaking all the time and watching the riders behind, watching those power numbers and making sure you're as drilled as possible. As we look at Enshored now, Hannah.
Yeah, even more so in the communication aspect in a team time trial, making sure that you're honest between your riders and your teammates and your sports directors. We take a look at Enshored, powered by Pedal Power, with Tina Grobler, Sydney Andrew, and Melanie King, Jamie Clark and Britt Mason, the 4 riders from the USA, and the 1 rider, Tina Grobler, from Great Britain. So racing on different time zones, Enshored, powered by Pedal Power. So that is also something in itself for this team. Different time zones, different feelings.
for Tina Grobler, already coming towards the end of her day, already had sort of the day in the legs for some of the riders from the USA, depending on which coast they're on, East Coast, West Coast, wherever the sort of only just sort of getting their day started. So all these different aspects have a difference on how the riders are feeling as well, and how much they've got in them. I saw some riders have already done a recon earlier today as well, to take a look at today's course.
Yep, recon's absolutely vital. Next up, Team ATP, 5 riders strong. Again, a really lovely design kit. You can never mistake that that name, ATP, just written on the shorts there. Megan Kelly of the United States, Hannah Allen of Canada, Cassie Nelson of the US, Angela Roberts also of the US, and then we have the Australian there, Anel Radford. So really good lineup and a nice formation early on. So they clearly have done their homework. They clearly have ridden team time trials before, and I can tell you cannot just drop in to the ZRL and having not done any team time trial training at all. And I'm wondering if some teams have just done some event only stuff, just invited riders on, which you can do. You can send out a little bit of an invite to some of your friends, ride on any world, and almost do team time trial training in secret if you so wish, as well as riding in the WTRL as well. But a good formation so far from ATP. And next up, Hannah, it's Movistar.
Movistar, the team who were up bright and early this morning at 6 AM to do their recon of the team time trial. Only 4 riders starting today. Anna Delana not taken to the start for the Movistar team, but still a really strong 4 riders. Beth McKeever, Becky Story, the rider from the Isle of Man, Imogen Cotter, the Irish road race champion IRL, and Steph Clutterbuck, who recently, just a couple of weeks ago, won an Ironman over in Portugal.
Oh, very, very impressive. It always does. I mean, when you look at what some of these riders actually do doing esports, there's riders that come from mountain biking, there's riders that come from the track, there's triathletes that do it. It's not just pure road cyclists, it really is a broad base of which to draw these athletes. But what they all do, as well as their own respective disciplines in and around cycling, is a fire well on all cylinders. We're going to fire back now and have a look at Toyota Cryo RDT, who early on in their ride looked to be riding nice and close, and that's what it's all about. It's making sure the gaps between the wheels are as close as possible, Hannah, isn't it, to maximise that draft?
And making sure that as a rider, once you've done your turn, you sort of swing off and you go to the back of your group to try and make sure that you can benefit from that draft. Gantz just getting on the wheel there of the rider, and you can see Stevenson in her pain cave along with Harriet Gilson. Very nice pain cave, I have to say, there, Gilson. With the
looks like the GCN studio. I thought she was down there with Dan, you and Dan on the sofa in the background.
And I'm trying to work out whether that's one of the maps, one of the world maps of Zwift in the background in her pain cave.
Perhaps have to ask her. Maybe we should do an awards ceremony for the best looking pain caves, the most unorthodox and the coolest pain caves, as we now look at Team Saris out on the road. They are 7th. They started off 6th today, but they're 7th overall in the current rankings. Sarah Morrison, Meglin Isler, Esther Boville, Eleanor Wiseman of Germany, and also Courtney Nelson as well. Courtney Nelson, an exceptionally good rider out on the real life on the road as well. So this team look pretty decent. They're coming up towards that early time check. So they're riding really, really well indeed. Remember, 3 different time checks on at the course today at 7.5Ks, 16Ks and at 24Ks. As we're looking at the stats there of Saris. So Boville there, you can just see 4 watts a kilo. And Wiseman, who's now moving just through 6 watts a kilo, and the 2 riders, Isler and Morrison, who had just sat behind putting out less watts. And that's what you need to look for, isn't it? Is making sure, and it's looking at the numbers and making sure you maximise that draft. Because you can, when I did a team time trial, Hannah, and it's on Zwift, it is amazing the amount you can save if you get right onto that wheel. But it does take a lot of practice, but once it's dialed, it's really quite rewarding.
We were just talking about this with Dan on the sofa, just getting into that formation as a team. it's incredibly difficult. And some of these teams, because they've been doing it for such a long time, making it look easy, but to put it into practice is incredibly difficult. And Sarah's here, you know, doing a tremendous job. They've put in their 2 strongest riders on the front, remaining on the front. As we take a look at Team Swedish Zwifters, we go across to this all-Swedish team: Jessica Edqvist, Marlene Bjarhed, Maria Frisk, Anna Svodstrom and Anna Embring. And you can just see all in one line. Edqvist has just finished her turn, coming down the outside, and needs to try and just get on the back of this line as quick as she possibly can.
Great picture. Sorry, a great picture-in-picture of all these riders. It does look as if Frisk is perhaps riding in a bike shop. Otherwise, she's got one of the biggest collection of bikes I've ever seen. But looking at hovering at around 6-7 watts a kilo there. Edqvist is the rider in 3rd position, and that's interesting. She's actually kicking out a lot less watts, but as she rolls through to the front, that's when her power will have to increase. Just trying to work out the rider who's on the front. I think it is Spadström doing a pretty long turn on the front, but it will ebb and flow. It's amazing how in a team time trial, although the idea is to keep a nice linear average speed for the team, the actual power distribution between the different riders will be really, really up and down, and that's where it's really hard to control.
Really hard to control, but making sure that as a team you are efficient, that when you're putting out the power, you're sort of gaining and continuing that speed without a rider kicking through hard or making a big acceleration when they come towards the front, which then sort of strings things out. You start to see a gap in the line.
Yeah, Shallow is the rider just on the front there. And as you said, that's a really, really nice tight formation. That's when you get there, you maximise the benefit of the draft. Use your really strong riders. When you think about the last few races that Beast Mode Powered by Rose have done and the way that they've deployed their athletes, Shallow has been one of the most aggressive riders. So she's one of the riders that they're going to have to use. That raw strength that she has really suits the team for her to ride on the front. As we go now, Hannah, to team 2024, a team that sit 4th overall. They've got some real powerful riders in this team.
And as a team, with Kristen Kulczynski and Shayna Palace sort of at the heart of the team, along with Paige Peters, Naomi De Pennington and Paige Redman, this team, you know, they've put a lot of work and effort with their team manager Josh into the whole of the ZRL Premier Division to try and sort of, first of all, win one of the rounds, also be up there in the team standings. And Kulczynski, as we've seen week on week, has been one of the stalwarts. She's been one of the animators of the races. And if you have some of the strongest riders, like as we were just saying, Matt, make them do longer turns, make them do longer efforts on the front, but make sure that you're keeping the effort in a linear effort to not sort of split things up within the line.
Well, let's move from 2024 to Canyon. And this is a solid lineup, as we know. We know how well drilled, how well versed they are at this particular discipline. Stephanie Sidlick of the US, Mary Wilkinson, second recently in the British Hill Climb Championships there for Great Britain, Kristen Falk of Norway, Cécile Lejeune of France, and Caroline Williams. That really is an all-star roster. They are the team that sits in 3rd place on the general classification. Hasn't been all Heino this year, although over the last couple of races they have come good. But this looks pretty good so far in the early stages on at the streets of London. Let's have a little look at some of the numbers here. Williams is on the front there. You can just see that power should start to nudge up now. Just hovering around 5 watts a kilo. Cécile Lejeune, to try and get back on the wheel, is riding at around a similar number, and then starts to go round. And generally, depending on the tactic of the team, you normally would do around 30 seconds on the front, but that's far easier to say than actually do. But already Canyon looking nice and tight. Let's move over now, Hannah, to Aeonian Racing.
Aeonian Racing Team, a team who've already had a lot of success in this season of the ZRL with Los Anarchistes, along with the Dutch rider. They have Lily Swan, Monali Keller from Canada, Daniela Estrate, the Romanian rider, and Ariel Verhaeren, who's also been up there getting podiums in the points races for the Aeonian Race Team. And I've been really thrilled with the team and really impressed with the way they've raced this season, Aeonian, and I think they just have had, from the experience of the previous seasons, they've brought it into season 4, and it's just been incredible to watch. I'm sure you'll agree, Matt.
No, definitely. This season in particular has been very, very exciting indeed. But as we've seen in previous seasons, it is Heino that after, I wouldn't say a shaky start, I think after a start where other teams have come to the fore, it's as simple as that. We know Heino Racing are still a classy outfit. That's why they're leading. That's why they are last team on the road to start. The best seeded team, and there is their lineup. Vicky Whitelock, Vicky Neelan, Cecilia Hansen and Alice Lethbridge. But interestingly, only 4 riders strong. That will put them at a little bit of a disadvantage. They won't get quite as much rest as the other teams. But I think to compensate for that, what they do have is 4 riders, Hannah, that just have a lot more power than a lot of individuals. So collectively, although they are clearly at a numerical disadvantage, not as much opportunity to rest, they still have the ability with 4 riders to win this, don't they?
They certainly do. When you look at the past results of the team time trial across all of the seasons of the ZRL, they are the only team to ever win a team time trial in the women's ZRL Premier Division, and that just gives you some indication of just how mighty this team are at this discipline and how well drilled they are. As you just mentioned, only starting with 4 riders today. Melanie Maurer, the Swiss rider who would have been their 5th rider, is currently coming back from the World Championship duathlon, which she took part in on Saturday, where she finished 5th place. So they still come with a strong lineup.
Well, there's the Mall split at 7.68, Enshored there with 11.07, Kirkmare at 8.38, ATP Racing currently sitting in 3rd, but lots of steams still to pass through. We're looking at Cryo here. ATP Racing go through 28 seconds adrift, so already some pretty big gaps early on in this race. Only 7.6 kilometres in, but still a lot of racing to go, but already we are seeing some significant gaps between these teams as we head on to the Mall. Like riding the team time trial on Zwift, what I found, it really helped me ride on the road. It's amazing the discipline and the skill you learn in relation to feathering and the really subtle application of power. Rather than just stamping on the pedals, you really do learn how to just apply 5 or 10 watts, because normally out on the road you wouldn't really need that level of understanding. But what this does give you, it is a really unique, interesting proposition as we see Cryo run through. I think it's a fascinating discipline. I think you can actually learn far more about your ability to produce power and gain even more control, Hannah, as we look at Saris.
Your ability to ride as a team as well and be controlled and patient and not unleash all of your power in one go. You have to think not only about yourself and conserving energy for yourself, but also about your teammates around you, making sure that you get as many of your riders as far into the race as possible. Don't forget, you've got to finish and cross the line with 3 riders, and the time is taken on the 3rd rider. So there's no point being the fastest team at the intermediate split, but after that you've already lost 2 or 3 of your riders are starting to struggle and they're into that red zone. It's about that control within the team time trial, whilst spreading yourself evenly, you're spreading your effort evenly and being efficient and making sure that communication isn't lost or isn't stopped after only the first part of the race, that you continue to communicate throughout the whole race.
Yeah, you are totally right. Communication is key, even distribution. It really is a skill. And the more you ride, the more you do get better. And the more you understand about the strengths, the weaknesses of your teammates. There you go, still 24 Ks to go now. Movistar are the fastest at the moment. They are 8, just a shade under 9 seconds faster than Team Saris, but we are looking at Team Swedish Zwifters out on the road. They currently sit in 6th place on the classification. Just coming through to that time sprint here. 4 riders they have. Their full lineup was Jessica Edquist, Marlene Bjarhed, but it does look as if they have lost a rider, Anna Embring and Anna Spardstrom. It's not going to help them, but they're still looking pretty tight. What time can they do? Remember, these intermediate splits are only, well, they're not exactly unofficial, but they are provisional. But Movistar looking very, very good on these early stages. But still, of course, we've got Heino to come, 2024, all the big teams as we head back into the centre of London again. It is a beast mode we're looking at now. They look like they're doing, I don't think that was a minute, they're actually chasing the team directly in front. So beast mode looked to be doing a pretty decent performance here. Remember, 5th overall, Haag, Kummer, Amar, Miller and Shallow. And Shallow was doing a lot of work early on. This looks like, I think this is going to be a very, very good team. Swedish Zwift is very good, just 2 seconds behind Movistar. But what can this German team do, Hannah?
Yeah, really interesting from Beast Mode, powered by Rose. Really got themselves well drilled, and you can see the rider there on the front with number 87 on her back. That is the German rider, Julia Shallow, and as we said before, she is one of the strongest riders within the team. This is a huge effort here from Beast Mode, powered by Rose, and they go through that first intermediate checkpoint on the mile at 7.6 kilometres in first place, 8 seconds ahead of Movistar. So a tremendous ride there from the German team.
Well, they're a chasing team of Swedish Zwifters. They're definitely encroached on their time, but it's a 2024 now. This looks to be a solid performance by the American squad as well. 2024, Kuczynski, Paulus, Peters, De Pennington and Redmond. And it is Peters, the American, now on the front, but they need to get things just a little bit tighter. Make sure they're getting as much rest as possible. Kristen Kuczynski gets nicely onto the wheel there, just feathers her way back onto the wheel of her colleague, of her teammate, and of her fellow countryman. I think that's going to be pretty tight. They won't be too far behind Beast Mode, powered by Rose. Shayna Paulus would have been the rider that counted across the line. That's where the time would have been taken on the finish line, of course, and on these intermediate splits. Well, there it is. Only not too much in it. Beast Mode still lead. But 2024, that's a solid performance, 5.7. As we look now, Hannah, at Canyon. Wow, this looks quick.
Wow, this is coming up fast for the team, Canyon Esports. They're about to go through that first intermediate checkpoint. It's all very close at the top of the leaderboard at the moment. But what are Canyon Esports going to do? This is going to be the rider, Mary Wilkinson, who leads them across the line. And what time are Canyon Esports going to do? What is the damage going to be? Because for my reckoning, they've gone through not too long after 2024.
I do agree. There we go. We're both, well, our rough estimates there, Hannah, were right. They are 6.18 seconds provisionally in front of Beast Mode. 2024, very quick too, at 11 seconds, and Movistar at 14.75, and running out the 5th best team so far at 7.6 k's are the more. But let's have a look at Heino. Team Heino were riding a very, very strongly, but they've still got a bit of a distance to go. This is interesting. So Heino a little bit further down the course. Have they had a bit of a problem? 1 kilometre to go. So, well, I don't know if they're going to be as quick. Remember, Heino were the last team on the circuit. We haven't looked at Aeonian though, so Aeonian are the team, of course, in between. I did forget, so this could be a very, very decent team, because we need to look at what Aeonian are doing. They're the team that should be riding down the finishing straight in between 2024 and the Canyon Esports. But we are focusing on Heino at the moment. Cecilia Hansen, Alice Lethbridge, Vicky Whitelaw with an I, and Vicky Neelan with a Y. So 10:34. Aeonian have already crossed, so we will get the time of Aeonian very, very shortly. Didn't catch them crossing the line, just adding an air of mystery. So Aeonian in 3rd, 6.54. But what can Alice Lethbridge and the rest of her teammates do here? They do look to be riding very, very quickly.
Very quickly indeed, and it would have been interesting to see where Aeonian placed and went across the line in comparison to where Heino were on the course. And at the moment they have this tremendous formation. They're not getting into this this bunched up formation. They're all in one long line. Lethbridge still continues on the front. She's got Vicky Whitelaw, the Australian rider, on her wheel, and they go through that first intermediate checkpoint, with Vicky Neelan being the 3rd rider across the line. So what can Heino do, the team in the red jerseys, as they Vicky Whitelaw goes through? with Neyland leading things and taking over control at the moment. Hansen sitting, and there we are, 4th place, 6.79 seconds. So at the moment, it's still not all over, but wow, this is close, Matt.
It is indeed. It's very, very close indeed. The top 6 teams. It is only early on, remember. The full distance, 31.04 kilometres, remember. But that first split at 7.5, they know they've got a bit of a job to do, but certainly a lot can change over the next 25 kilometres or so as we look now at Kirchmere Racing, the first team out of the blocks today here on this London and Surrey route. Naumann is the rider on the front here. Let's have a look at some of these stats. Naumann is the rider sticking out about 4 watts a kilo now. Mick is the rider just rolling through. It's a pretty tight formation here, Hannah. But as you said, if you get an overlap, there is the benefit of draft. But what can actually happen is the team loses discipline. And riders that were going to do a turn on the front end up shutting gaps down. And unless there's a particular distinct order or a bit of information that's come through, generally speaking, there should the team that generally do best are the teams that have that discipline, that have that rigidness to their lineup. But when you start to overlap, you lose all of that, and it can become a little bit chaotic. But now Kirkmare are getting into that ideal formation, one long line. That's almost perfect what we're seeing on our screens right now there.
Yeah, tremendous. For just a moment there, we saw Stina Mick, the German rider, go through and touch above 7 watts per kilogram. And after Lisanne Neumann had done a hard effort, she almost started to get distance. We almost started to see some gaps opening up for the team of Kirchmere. So they got themselves back into that formation. And it still is Stina Mick on the front of this team. All German team, as you can see there is that wonderful heat map to see just how much draft these riders are benefiting from. And take a look at that, the first 3 riders, perfect, all in one line.
Well, you can tell the rider on the front is Hannah Borschein. She's sticking out 5 watts a kilo, 322, but look, 100 watts behind Hannah Colling at 220. So just a real insightful indication of how much you do save when you get that formation right. And this is almost like poetry in motion. A lot would depend, of course, well, not a lot. It entirely depends on the speed they're managing to maintain. But they are looking very, very well drilled as we look a little bit further down the road now at Enshored, powered by Pedal Power. Tina Grobler, Britt Mason, Sydney Andrew, Melanie King and Jamie Clark. A little bit more ragged, a little bit more of an overlap as they turn right. And this is heading over Lambeth Bridge and that little trip into Surrey. Let's have a reminder of the standings here. Well, this is Westminster, the second split, should I say. Kirkmare, by virtue of being the first team on the course, are leading. So it gives you a bit of a benchmark, 24.09, and Enshored have gone through quicker. And now we're looking at a team ATP now, Hannah.
Yeah, Enshored just taking 16 seconds out of Kirchmere as we see ATP Racing and Nell Radford, the rider from Australia, on the front. And you can see the difference in the kit as well between these teams as we see one of the first catches of the day. Movistar with their 4 riders are almost about to make the catch with ATP Racing Venom, the team with the pink kit. So this is extra motivation for Movistar when they can see a team in front, but the important part is not to lose that discipline. Now you start to see a team in front of you not to up the pace too much and put too much power down that you end up sort of blowing before you end up getting to the finish.
Well, if you are just joining us, this is round 5, the penultimate round of this season, of this ZRL. We are in the midst of a team time trial, the only team time trial of this season of the ZRL, and the course is the Greatest London Flat. The River Thames is to the right. Just beyond Lambeth Bridge is Surrey, and that's where we are. And you're seeing the first catch of the day. It is Movistar going straight past Team ATP, 4 riders versus 5. But it is the Spanish World Tour esports squad that have gone straight past, leaving ATP in their wake as they swing right over Lambeth Bridge. And the rules on this one are simple. It is the fastest team on the night, or the day, or the morning, wherever you are in the world, that wins. And it's the third rider across the line that counts for your team. And discipline is what this is all about. Discipline, evenness of pace, and understanding your teammates. That essentially is the name of your game. If you have just joined us, thanks very much indeed. It's tight at the top, and at split number 2 at Westminster, Movistar are the leading team at the moment as we head back to Cryo now, Hannah.
Yeah, tremendous job there from Movistar. Beth McKeever just leading that one and leading the chase, catching ATP Racing Venom as they go through 28 seconds ahead of Enshored, powered by Pedal Power. But here we see the team of Cryo still with their 4 riders. Heisel there, the Danish rider, just sitting at the back of the group. We take a look back into a really nice formation. The Scottish rider Natalie Stevenson just sitting towards the back, number 21 on her back, as they go through, about to go through this intermediate checkpoint on Westminster. Where will they stop the clock at the moment? Can they challenge the team of Movistar E-Team?
Well, time will tell. It's not a bad time, but 21 seconds adrift. It shows that Movistar are riding very, very well indeed. That is a lot of time to make up. The top 5 teams so far only at 16.8 kilometres. Remember, the next split is at 24 k's and the final distance is 31. So if Movistar continue that sort of pace, they should take a lot of time out of the teams behind them. As we look at Saris riding very, very well here. They set a pretty good pace earlier on, a pretty good time at the first intermediate split. We're now running through Lambeth. That gantry, that orange gantry just at the top of your screen is where the clock will stop at this Westminster split. They don't go all the way into Westminster. You can just about see the Houses of Parliament rendered in the distance. And you can also see the London Eye just to the right-hand side. Immaculate detail here. We've even got the bike lanes as well. It does feel as if you really are in London, as Saris, rider number 3, crossing the line there, and the clock will stop. Big question is, at what time can they do? And have they got enough left to change their tactic later on as well? So they're not, that's 30 seconds drift, so 30 seconds down. This is a quite tremendous time that Movistar are doing here. They really are a team that are way ahead of anybody else. They're doing something pretty special.
Really impressive, and let's not forget they only started with the 4 riders to begin with, so they didn't start with their full complement of riders. As Team Swedish Swifters, they are approaching this intermediate checkpoint at Westminster, and it wasn't long since Team Saris went through. Team Swedish Swifters are also on to a very good evening of racing today. Team led through there by this all-Swedish team. Where can they go? 11 seconds adrift of the Movistar E-Team. 11 seconds that puts them into 2nd place overall. So again, another impressive ride from this team.
Indeed, well, Beast Mode are beasting it. They are absolutely flying down the banks of the River Thames. They'll be heading over Lambeth Bridge shortly. But crucially, what time have they set at the Westminster split? This is split number 2. The 3rd rider just out of shot crosses the line there. That was number 82. That was Pia Kuma, who just crossed the line there. We shall get that information through as we just head over the river. Slight little rise over Lambeth Bridge, and they are the fastest team. 15 seconds clear of Movistar. Well, what a time that's been set by the German team. Schalau on the front. She's been powerful over the last 4 races and is looking to be a key component part of that squad tonight. What a time, 15 seconds quicker than Movistar, who looked, Hannah, to be flying. in 2024 coming up to the check now as well.
Incredible there from Beast Mode, powered by Rose. Not long after is 2024. They are coming up to their checkpoint, and it is the rider who is Kulczynski there at the front. Peters is there alongside her, as well as I think it's Shayna Paulus, the rider with number 51 on her back. Kulczynski, sorry, with 51. So they go through. Where will they figure in the intermediate checkpoint? Can they challenge the time of Beast Mode, powered by Rose? They do, and wow, take a look at that time, Matt. It's only just beaten the time of Beast Mode, powered by Rose.
Well, what makes that all the more impressive, they've pulled back time, but they've only got 3 riders, Kristen Kulczynski, Paige Peters and Shayna Paulus. So a great performance with only 3 riders. Can they keep that going? But look at Canyon. Canyon, without a shadow of a doubt, You don't need to be an expert at mental timing to work out that Canyon are absolutely flying down here. Still 5 riders strong, still only around half distance, remember. We've still got around 16 Ks to go, 15 Ks to go from this point. But I can tell you, looking at that, Canyon, you would imagine, would have set the best time. Really good group in there. Lejeune, Williams, Mary Wilkinson and the rest of the squad. And Canyon, unsurprisingly, are top by 17 seconds. What a performance by this team. But it is Heino who are the fastest team ever on this circuit. But that, Hannah, is a very, very high benchmark indeed.
A very, very impressive benchmark there with Canyon Esports as well. When you take a look at the equipment they're using, all have a disc wheel on, all with the aero helmets as well, all trying to get as many aero gains as they possibly can. As we take a look at Aeonian, what can they do? Can they challenge this this time still? With a complement of 5 riders, Adachis just going through their strate, sitting in the place that she knows best at the back, just making the most of that draft effect as they come up towards Westminster Intermediate checkpoint after 16.8 kilometres, and they have one rider in front of them. That's Naomi de Pennington of the Team 2024, so she's no longer with that compilation of riders. It's a bit of added extra motivation though, but what can Aeonian do? Where are they going to stop the clock?
Yeah, where are they going to stop the clock? Unfortunately, Pennington is caught and passed in short order. Second place though for Aeonian Race Team. That is pretty respectable, but 15 seconds they have to make up. So 2 seconds quicker than 2024 and 3 seconds quicker than Beast Mode. That's a very, very solid performance, but a lot to make up. But remember, we are only at half distance. But next up is Heino, who look to be flying as well. All of the teams that are passing through, setting brand new benchmarks. But remember, Heino only started with 4 today. Cecilia Hansen, Alice Lethbridge, Vicky Whitelaw and Vicky Neelan. And it looks like they're going to be setting the quickest team here to put the benchmark even higher at around half distance. What can Heino do? It's going to be tight, but I do think they might just about take the quickest time here, Hannah.
We know when we've seen over previous team time trials, they only get stronger over the longer distance. Do Heino, they really excel when and there you go, second place at the moment, 12 seconds adrift, just less than 13 seconds adrift of Canyon Esports. So still quite a little bit of work to do for Heino. They can't rest on their laurels. I saw they were out racing in the WTRL on Thursday evening to try and get some team time trial practice in. And as we mentioned before, they have never lost a race in this discipline in all of the ZRL seasons.
No. But, well, they're a team of experience. Remember, that checkpoint was only just around half distance. They've still got a fair way to go today, and they are, as you said, a team of experience as we head down into the subway, down those boards that our Zwifters have kindly put. Otherwise, that'll be a very, very bumpy, slightly chaotic and ever so slightly dangerous run-in down those steps. So as we look a little bit further up at Kirkmare again, well, that is a great time. Next check coming up, this is Lower Thames Street. This is the final intermediate split at 24 Ks. And Kirkmare roughly 12 minutes further up the road. But fair play to Kirkmare, they're the last team, or the first team off the last team in the standings of the 12 squads. But they have kept really good discipline here. 35.03 is the time, but Enshored Power by Pedal Power looks as if they're going to set the fastest team, although they are the only second team on the road. But good discipline and good formation by this squad.
I think you have to come out on the night and do the best you possibly can. Make sure that you do keep that discipline. Make sure that you ride to the best of your ability, the team's ability. Make sure you're keeping that communication aspect. And you know, the more team time trials you do, that you can only get better and learn and gain that experience. As we see through the Lower Thames Street at 24 kilometres, Enshored Power by Pedal Power, it goes through 18 seconds faster than Kirchmeier. So still Kirchmeier, a little bit of work to do, and still a stronger performance here from Enshored Power by Pedal Power.
Yeah, Enshored looking really good. They're going to be pretty happy with that, but Movistar are coming through very shortly as well. And the rider we're looking at on your screens there is McKeever. Of course, the winner last week. What a ride that was by Beth McKeever. 7.4 kilometres to go for this squad. They're out earlier on doing a recon. They've had some pretty decent times so far. Only 300 metres to go. So less than a minute has passed since Enshored have crossed the line. So you would imagine they will set the fastest time so far, but they've only got 3 riders left, and that does make it very, very difficult. Not as much time to recover. You really are relying on long pulls on the front and communication, because when you get to just 3 riders left, and with that lack of recovery, the fatigue really starts to set in, doesn't it? So you really have to make sure you're managing that between you, because you have to go at this point to the speed of your slowest rider.
You certainly do, and the fatigue sets in because you're having less and less rest on the wheels and time to have a little bit of a respite momentarily in the team time trial. As we take a look at ATP Racing Venom, they go through the checkpoint still with their full complement of riders. So another really impressive ride here by the ATP Racing Venom. And El Radford sitting very, very tightly in second place on the wheel. And what time have they do? Well, 1 minute and 20 seconds adrift at the moment of the time of Movistar E-Team. So a little bit of work to do, but still impressive. Just taking a look at their formation, Matt.
That's still decent formation as we look about to Cryo now. Cryo still looking good, keeping things very, very tight indeed. Remember, ATP that we just saw have actually been caught and passed, remember, by Movistar with 34.03, but Cryo looking good today. Stevenson, Gamst, Gilson, Winterbrandt and Dijkstra of the Netherlands. That is their lineup, and they'll be coming through. And this is a decent, solid performance as Heisel just drifts to the back, just slips into the slipstream of her fellow countrywoman. And it's Gamst where the time will be taken across the line there at Lower Thames Street. 24 Ks, what does that equate to? How are the women in that rather fetching blue faded kit? They're second, so that is a good, solid performance. As Stevenson hit the front, Toyota are going to be reasonably happy with that, you'd imagine, Hannah.
I think they will. They'll be very happy with the ride so far. And when you take a look at how they're riding and controlling themselves across this race, and you take a look at the power that they're putting out, Stevenson doing a tremendous job of keeping things in line, keeping things in formation. As we take a look at Team Saris, a team who've had success in the ZRL before. When you look at their lineup of riders, again another strong team: Courtney Nelson, Esther Beauville, also Megan Aisler, Sarah Morrison and Eleanor Wiseman. A team of 5 riders spread across different nations, different continents. At the moment, a few gaps starting to open up though as we go through this third and final intermediate checkpoint. And take a look at this, Wiseman, the Belgian rider, just has accelerated and left her teammates a little bit behind. So she needs to try and let her teammates get back on her wheel as they go through in third fastest at the moment, 28 seconds adrift.
I mean, it's a solid performance, but Wiseman, look at that perfect example of she needs to back off. This is where communication is absolutely crucial, because the other riders behind aren't in the draft. They're just about on the tail end, but they're essentially chasing now. So Wiseman really needs to just knock it off a little bit, even free wheel just for a second, just to drop back as we look at Team Swedish Zwifters now. Embering, 4th rider from that lineup. And Beast Mode are well on their tails here. Well, a couple of ride-ons being dropped. Remember, fire up your Zwift companion apps. Remember to give ride-ons to these riders who are fully committed. They're really, really going to be in a lot of pain. But Beast Mode go through. Wow, look at that. 46.83 seconds, should I say, faster than Movistar. They are romping up this course. And Beast Mode, Hannah, about to catch the 4 riders from Team Swedish Zwifters.
Well, this is truly tremendous from the German team. Schallau still on the front. What a rider Julia Schallau is, and she has done such a great job to lead this team, and also with the team manager Sebastian Wolf to get the discipline and the formation within this team. As they make the junction, they catch Toyota Cryo RDT, they go past, and that is that motivation for that team when you can see and you have a rider and a team in front of you. But here, through the intermediate checkpoint, 2024 Kilchinski, the rider who's just ever so slightly off the front at the moment. Where are they going to stop the clock at the moment? Looks like they only have the 3 riders left in this complement of riders into second place, Matt.
Yeah, well, Kuczynski on the front, so Canyon not too far behind. Good riding there by 2024, but they really do need to keep things together. That's where discipline is really going to come into play. Everybody needs to keep talking to each other, but look at Canyon. They are romping around this circuit, but they have 5 riders left as well, so that extra little bit in reserve, that will give them that extra little bit of speed. Because you've still got 5 riders on the front, they can keep that pace high because you know you've got that extra little bit of time to recover. What is the time going to be? Canyon Esports, 15 seconds quicker than Beast Mode and another 6 seconds quicker than 2024. Canyon Esports still the quickest team out there, but what can Heino do? Heino still out on the road. This is going to be absolutely fascinating stuff, as are Aeonian as well. But Canyon Esports with a 33.01. This is going to be tight. Aeonian still got a way to go here, but like Canyon, Hannah, have all 5 riders, and that is going to be absolutely crucial as we head into the denouement, the final stages of this round 5 of the ZRL. Addergeest in second place there.
Yeah, it's paramount, isn't it, that a team still has some firepower left for the remainder of the race. Still, 7 kilometres from this intermediate checkpoint to the finish. So you still need to have that strength within the team to try and have some riders who can do the bulk of the work. They can swing off once they've spent all of their energy and leave it to the final 3 riders. And at the moment, Aeonian Race Team are doing a great job of that. With their team, with the riders coming up to this intermediate checkpoint at the moment. It will be Los Addergeest who leads them across the line at the moment with the pink bike. And where will they stop the clock? Can they challenge? Well, 3rd place at the moment. It's not all over though. 20 seconds adrift and 1 second, only 1 second ahead of 2024. So close.
So very tight at the top, but this is the team that was second. Team Heino, only 4 riders that they started with, but the team that lead the series so far, they cannot afford to drop too far behind. It is very tight to the top. Anything can still change in the league. If you have one bad night, especially in the team time trial, after consistent finishes in the scratch races and the points races, it can all change. But what can Heino do? 4 riders, remember, Hansen, Lethbridge, Whitelaw and Neelan. They are the last team on the road. Canyon Esports have set the best time at 24 Ks at the Lower Thames Street Rise. This is a nasty little drag. There we go. They've gone through that intermediate check. The seconds now tick by until we get, and there we go, 13 seconds down. So they've actually lost a little bit more ground. Canyon Esports have taken another 6 or 7 seconds since that first split. So what a ride by Canyon Esports. What can Heino do as we head to the finish here for Kirkmere, the first team off, and unsurprisingly the first team to finish. So we will get a little bit of a sense of what the times are going to be here on round 5 of the Zwift Racing League, and the only team time trial of this season. They're about to cross the line. Great riding by the German team here, and they didn't quite get the time of that squad, but we're moving on to, there we go, 44.56. Hannah, it's the first time through, but Enshored look as if they're going to beat that.
Yeah, not far off the tail of Kirchmere are Enshored, powered by pedal power, and they still have the 4 riders. A little acceleration there from one of the riders from Enshored, powered by pedal power. Jamie Clark just accelerating, but of course the time is taken on the 3rd rider. It looks like Britt Mason is going to be the 3rd rider across the line for this team, and just at the last moment losing that formation. Britt Mason will be trying as hard as she can to get to the wheel of Andrew to try and take the fastest time from Kirchmere as the 2nd team to finish this race, and Movistar not far behind, Matt.
Well, a solid time by Enshored to take the lead, but I think it might be beaten pretty quickly here by Movistar, who is starting to fracture just a little bit. Only 3 riders left: Beth McKeever, Steph Clutterbuck and Becky Story. So we have Great Britain, the Isle of Man and Scotland battling it out for this Spanish squad. all in their very beautiful matching kit, completely the same disc choice as you would see. Swinging left now in to the finish. It's going to be tight, I think. Can Movistar beat the time of Enshored powered by Pedal Power? Really good discipline here, a really tight formation, making sure they don't leave anybody behind, because if they open up the sprint too early, Hannah, and split it, that could really, really damage the chances. So it's so important, even when you open up the taps in the final, to try and keep things as close as you can and protect the riders that are struggling on the wheel. Makiva is in fight, is the last place there. And there is that draft map for us. Absolutely fascinating to see. Clutterbuck there in second, but the clock will stop on Story. And there we go. It's going to be tight, I think, as we look a little bit further down at ATP. Movistar do take the lead, though, 43.56, as we look at ATP finishing their race.
ATP Racing Venom not going to challenge the time of Movistar. Let's not forget, Movistar caught this team earlier on in the race, but still all fighting for those all-important points at the end of the night. 1 minute and 24 down on the time of Movistar as we head to Toyota Cryo RDT. Still with their 4 riders, still in a very nice formation. And as you see, Natalie Stevenson, the Scottish rider, leading things in for this team in the faded blue kit down the mile as the finish line nears ever closer. What can they do? Can they challenge the time of Movistar, Matt?
Oh, it's looking very, very tight, isn't it? Look at that great shot there as we fly down the mall. There is the final sprint, 200 metres to go now for Cryo. Stevenson, Gilson, Gamst and Hazel, they are the 4 riders, and they are keeping it very, very tight indeed. A real disciplined performance from Cryo RDT. The last few metres roll by and they cross the line. Almost a blanket finish for 3rd and 4th there as we look a little bit further down the road at Saris. The time, Movistar still there, but Toyota Cryo, great ride by them to end up 2nd so far as we take a look at Saris, who are fragmented on this fast section down the mall.
Well, it is Esther Belville, the 3rd rider of this team of Saris, who's just started to get slightly distanced from her 2 teammates, and this could sort of play against the team of Team Saris. Beauville was doing an awful lot of work in the earlier stages of this team time trial. She was putting out a lot of power, and she's just struggling to get back onto the wheel, struggling to get into that red draft zone. As we start to see, she's given it everything that she possibly can to try and get back, as of course the time taken on the 3rd rider. She does make it onto the wheel of Isla, but that will be a sigh of relief with only a couple of 100 metres to go for the riders and the team of Team Saris.
Well, absolutely fantastic stuff. Isla is the rider just towards the back, and a big kick by Sarah Morrison there. She looks like she's going to be the first home for Saris, but remember, it is the 3rd rider that crosses the line. And Bobel is going through, but Beast Mode powered by Rose absolutely flying down this red tarmac down the mall, almost catching the team on the line. What a performance by Shallow and Co. 8.3 a kilo. Team Swedish Swifters, so we've got plenty of teams finishing here. Beast Mode, though, take top spot so far with 42 minutes and 40 seconds. That's provisional as we look at Team Swedish Swifters, led by Anna Embring, just coming into their finish, Hannah.
Wow, well, incredible there from Beast Mode powered by Rose, and we didn't actually quite catch a glimpse of it, but Beast Mode powered by Rose were on such a good day. They actually caught Team Swedish Swifters, and there we go, 1 minute and 26 down on the team of the all-star Germans, and coming in very soon, should I say, sorry, is the team of 2024 led by Kristen Kulczynski. Paulus is still there. Just take a look at this perfect formation coming into the finish, Matt, all with the matching kit, with the matching disc wheels. As they see 300 metres to go, Kulczynski still is the rider on the front, as she's going to lead them across with Paige Peters and Shayna Paulus. Will they be able to challenge the time of Beast Mode powered by Rose of 42 minutes and 40 seconds? Where will they stop the clock?
Well, Canyon are on a absolutely flying. They're not too far behind them. So 2024 drop into second place. Solid ride by them. But what can Canyon do? 4 riders left for Canyon Esports. Wilkinson, William Sidlick and Cécile Lejeune of France. Look at that absolute perfection spread across the road. You could not do it better. They are absolutely flying. They've set the fastest time at the intermediate time splits. What is the final time going to do? They are going to tear apart the time of Beast Mode powered by Rose. Lejeune crosses the line, the clock stops, and we wait. Well, Aeonian with a K to go, but Canyon Esports 16 seconds better than Beast Mode, and Aeonian just coming through the K to go. It's going to be pretty close here, but they've got to hold 60 Ks an hour, although it is a fast finish. This is going to be tight, Hannah.
Very, very tight. Ionian, they certainly have got their work cut out. They still have 4 riders within their roster all the way to the finish line. And as they stay in that formation, Monali Keller, the Canadian rider, sitting in second place. But Canyon Esports, what a blistering time. Daniela Estrati, the Romanian rider, leads things through with the Los Anarchistes on her wheel on that pink bike. They're going to swing a left here ever so slightly onto the mile, and then they will see that orange banner, and that is the finish line. What have they got left? Because when I was taking a look at the numbers of Canyon Esports, Mary Wilkinson, it was 8 watts per kilo all the way into that finish in the final 500 meters. And take a look at this, the acceleration from Ionia with 300 meters to go.
Well, the team has split into 2. Anahist and Vaharan are the 2 riders out in front, but it's the time is going to be taken on Estrati or Monali Keller here. Keller and Estrati side by side. Their teammates have already finished, but remember the time stops on the 3rd rider. Canyon Esports lead with a 42.23. Aeonian Race Team now across the line, but Heino aren't too far away as well. Lethbridge there in 3rd position. We should get that Ionian in 4th place at 27.24, but Heino now into the finishing straight with their 4 riders. They only started with 4. Cecilia Hansen, Alice Lethbridge, Vicky Whitelaw and Vicky Nealon. What can the leaders of the ZRL do? And again, the team is split. There is the draft. They need to try and keep things together coming into the last couple of 100 metres here. Down the mall, we've got the Union Jacks to the right and left. 100 metres to go for Heino as they take over one of the riders from Canyon. Hansen firing through. They finally cross the line. Nealon is the 3rd rider. She will be the one that counts. And we hold our breath. Let's have a look at the final times. Well, this is a little bit tense, isn't it? There we go. 2nd place it was in the end for Heino. So the team that have won round 5 of the ZRL here on the streets of London and the rolling roads of Surrey. Canyon Esports take the win with a time of 42.23. Heino have to be content with 2nd at 12 seconds. Beast Mode powered by Rose. They'll be very happy with that performance in 3rd. 2024 in 4th. Then we have Ionian at 27 seconds, Movistar at 1:33. Team of Swedish Swifters in 7th, Toyota in 8th. Then we have Saris and Enshored rounding out the top 10, but a rather distant 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Hannah, thanks for calling that alongside me. That was breathless stuff, but it's time to head back to the studio and with Dan to unpick what was a fantastic.
Thank you very much, Matt. You can go and have your lie down now. That was intense, wasn't it? Very close at the top of the table there in the women's. Canyon Esports taking it, but Heino Racing have never been outside of the top 2 in this entire series. And so when we get the overall standings with 1 round remaining, I'm sure it will still be the Heino Racing Team that are at the very top of the table. We'll get confirmation of that very shortly indeed. Coming up on this post-race show, we'll also be picking apart some of the men's race and giving you the day's standings and also the overall standings with 1 round remaining for them as well. We're also going to dip into the GCN Racing All-Stars who've been competing in the Community League over the last few weeks. I think there's a few more rounds for them, but they're competing over the same team time trial course tomorrow evening. But last week they competed, and we'll find out exactly how they got on. But yes, Canyon Esports with a very good ride in both the men's and the women's races today, and they'll be particularly pleased with the round win that they had today in the women's side of things. That does leave things with everything to play for, I would say, on the final round next week, because the points difference between Heino and Canyon Esports in 2nd, I can't imagine is particularly big at this point right now. Well, I understand that we can get the women's results up on screen for you right now, and this is the state of play after 5 rounds. 5 points the gap between Heino Racing with Canyon Esports in second after that win today. A further 3 points are the Aeonian Race Team in third on 89 points, and then it's 5 points behind that of 2024. Great ride by Beast Mode today. They're in 5th place overall on 77. Then it's Swedish Zwifters, Team Sarid, Movistar E-Team, who missed round 3, let's not forget. Toyota Cryo, and then ATP Racing rounding out the top 10. And there you can see the final 4 placings in the teams classification after those 5 rounds. Very good stuff. Well, Hannah has run down to the studio from the commentary booth. She's just getting her breath back. Almost as hard for you as it was for the riders today, but that was brilliant, wasn't it?
Just about to say, should have had my heart rate watch on, shouldn't I? But that was fantastic. And the first time that we've ever seen a new winner, a new team to win in the team time trial discipline in any of the seasons of the ZRL. And for Canyon Esports, I mean, what a pure display of power, speed, formation, discipline, communication within the whole team. That was fantastic.
And we said from the very start, didn't we, how important it was to be cohesive as a team unit, to look after each other. And like you said, that's exactly what they did. Heino, like you said, unbeaten in team time trials, and they've been a dominant force in this series as well. They only had 4 rides at the start. How much difference did that make?
Well, you have to think it probably made a huge difference when you see Canyon Esports started with their full complement of riders. They could afford to lose 2 riders if they wanted, whereas Heino, they didn't have as much rest on the wheels, not as much draft either within the team, and I do think they were missing that 5th rider to be able to help them out. Of course, it wasn't to be on the night, but it just shows how crucial it is to try and start with a full complement of riders.
Would have been in the back of their minds, wouldn't it? We can only drop 1 rider at the very most in this race. Well, I understand, if technology permits, that we can now speak to one of the riders from Heino, Alice Lethbridge. Thank you very much for joining us, Alice. I hope you can hear us so soon after the race. How was that for you?
It was really, really hard tonight, actually, because like Hannah said, we were down to 4 riders, which we knew would be a real challenge because we know how strong Canyon are. And we're quite experienced in the team time trial because we do it a lot on a Thursday as well. So we really know the difference being down 1 rider makes. So we're actually really, really pleased with how we rode tonight.
So how did you change things tactically and in your pre-race briefing with 4 riders versus 5 today?
Well, that would be giving away some of our secrets, wouldn't it? But yeah,
go on, give them away.
Tell us.
I'm not going to give them away completely, but yeah, we adjusted both the watts we were doing on our pulls and the time we were doing tonight. And I had quite a chat with Lars, our team manager. We rode on Thursday night, some of us, to see what the new draft was like, and then Lars and I had a chat about how we might adjust our tactics.
Well, it seemed to work. You must be pretty pleased, not just with tonight, but of course with how the whole team's been riding over the 5 rounds. 3 second places if you include tonight, 2 wins, but it's still reasonably tight going into the last round. There's going to be a few nerves, isn't there, over the next 7 days?
Yeah, it's really good, actually. We're really pleased to see so many more teams pushing us hard and becoming strong. And Aeonian have been a really surprise of this season, which is really great to see. And next week's going to be so interesting because we've got both the tarmac and the gravel in the route, which is like the first time we've had a long gravel section in a ZRL race.
And finally, I was reading earlier that you said to your friends less than 2 years ago that you would never ever go on Zwift. Now,
yep.
You're one of the top Zwifters in the world, in the best racing team in the world. What's happened?
Well, lockdown was what caused it, really, because we couldn't ride outside with our friends. And actually, a couple of the guys in my club were challenging each other to a time trial and kind of winding each other up about who would win. So I was like, oh, this sounds like fun. Let's go and see if I can beat both of them. And then I sort of made loads of really good friends on Zwift. Some of them are other teams like Canyon now. And just this whole community is just so amazing and supportive. So that's why I'm still here.
It's addictive, isn't it, once you get started?
Yeah, it really is. And I think the reason that Heino we do so well is that we're friends. We chat to each other in the week. We're really looking forward to hopefully being able to meet up in real life sometime next year, maybe as well.
Easy to be friends when you're winning so much, I'm sure. Also, I saw that you only got into cycling after you'd finished running. You were injured a lot and you were inspired by the 2012 Olympics in London. So it must have felt like quite the journey for you over the last 9 years.
Yeah, it has done really, and I did struggle to sort of get used to cycling at first. I had quite a lot of fitness from running, but didn't really have a clue how to ride a bike properly. But I've just found loads of supportive people along the way, and in fact, you and Matt came to Kingston Leader Skills Day and really encouraged a lot of us as well. So thank you.
That's absolutely our pleasure. I can't believe we instilled many skills, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for speaking to us, Alice, tonight, so soon after your race. Very much appreciate it, and good luck for next week if you're competing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Alice Lethbridge there, who incidentally also competed at the Women's Tour, World Tour race in Britain here just a few weeks ago. She's come on leaps and bounds in just a few years, hasn't she, Hannah?
She has, and you know, it's fantastic to see. Fantastic to see that she and we and the community, we've been able to change her mind. We've been able to keep her on Zwift, doing the Zwift racing, and I think, you know, she's really embracing it now, and as you just said, racing in World Tour races on the road IRL. She's a fantastic time trialist out in Great Britain across sort of 10 mile, 25 mile, 50 mile time trials, and dominating on Zwift over the last year or so with her team Heino.
Yeah, she's got a lot of titles in time trials here in the UK, hasn't she?
She does.
How confident will they be going into the final round? I mean, they've ridden brilliantly, haven't they? So consistently over the 5 rounds, which is so important. But they've still got to do it in that 6th and final round next Monday, haven't they?
You have to be confident in yourself. You have to back yourself as a rider, as a team. Go into it with that confidence, with that motivation. Make sure you don't rest on your laurels, but also they've been here before. They're able to deal with that pressure, and that's a huge thing for a team. If you're able to deal with the pressure, you don't crack and break and sort of start to crumble when things really start to get tough next week. Of course, it's a course that we've not raced on before in the ZRL, so that's a new thing.
Yeah.
And I think as a team, because they've been so dominant, they know they've been here before. They've won the past 3 seasons of the ZRL, and having that pressure sort of taken away from them, I would say, will do them good. But of course, Canyon Esports, they're coming good. They've been so consistent this season.
Well, I was going to say, playing devil's advocate, they're the team now with the momentum, having taken the win today, so they'll also be full of confidence next week, and they are the team to beat in some ways still when you look at how powerful they were today. But then they did have the full complement of 5. We've got to remember that as well.
They did, and you know, Heino will hope that they'll have the full complement of 5 riders next week, so they'll have that upper hand again, and they'll sort of be on equal and level terms with the majority of the other teams. But as you say, I think from tonight, Canyon Esports will be raring to go to try and steal it on the last night.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Well, there was very little time between the end of the men's race and the start of the women's, so we haven't had an opportunity to discuss exactly what happened in the men's race yet. We did see the results, but I'm sure we can show them to you again very shortly indeed. Next Esports, though, with the perfect score, 2020-2020, 5 wins from 5 rounds for Next Esports, which has left Canyon Esports trailing in their wake. 9 points the difference, which is a mammoth amount of points to overtake with just 1 round remaining. Movistar with a very disappointing time trial today, only getting the 8 points on the day, so they're down to 3rd with 77 points. BZR in 4th on 85. Actually, that's not quite right. We need to reorder them, don't we? And then Team Saris, they were the surprise package for me today. They've been very consistent, but always around about 6th to 8th position, but they were 2nd today, Hannah, and very close to causing an upset with Next Esports at the top, weren't they? It
was almost about to disrupt that perfect score of 20 across the last 5 rounds, wasn't it? But with Team Saris, they've got so many experienced riders within the team, both who've competed IRL on the road. Mike Cumming for one, the British rider who now resides over in Australia, and I think for Team Saris, you know, they come good in peaks and troughs. They just don't have that pure consistency within the team.
And I was also going to ask you about the teams next week. So we've got 1 round to go in the men's race. It's hard to see anybody coming close to that Next Esports team at this stage, and at 9 points, you know, they'd have to have Canyon Esports winning the race and Next finishing what, 9th place on the day, I'd imagine. It
would have to be a horrific downfall for Next Esports if they were to lose at this moment. 9 points is an awful lot. A lot of things must go wrong for them if they are to lose the title at the last moment.
I presume their motivation now will be to complete the perfect score, won't it? Win in the final round?
It certainly will. I mean, you've got that confidence, you've got the momentum of the series so far, and it's been great to see more teams coming into this series, into the Premier Division, and really challenge some of the best teams, the best riders in the world.
I did predict Next Esports, but that's not really much to shout about when they won round 1, 2, 3 and 4 before tonight. It was reasonably predictable, but they were pushed pretty close by Team Saris today. Now, we've spent a lot of time talking about the top of the leaderboards. However, there's a lot to play for if we look a little bit further down. So, the ZRL Premier Division is running a demotion process at the bottom of the table and a promotion at the top of the Community League. And also, because on the men's side, there are only going to be 15 teams in the next series of the ZRL, it means that a total of 7 are going to be demoted at the bottom. This is how things stand, and it is very, very close between Restart Racing in 12th down to Fusion in 15th. In fact, if we look to 14th, it's 46 points. So there's 5 points difference there, slightly different to the table I was looking at a little bit earlier on. But it's from 13th down that you've got to look at. You want to be in the top 12 of the rankings because everybody, of course, Hannah, wants to stay in the Premier League for the next series. So as much as we're looking at the top quite a lot and the best teams in the ZRL at the moment, really in the men's side next week, there's more to play for there for the teams that want to stay up in the division that they're in. We're
going to have a race within a race, aren't we? For those teams sort of fighting out, those who are battling at the bottom of that demotion zone, shall we call it. They're almost going to be racing against each other just to save themselves, and perhaps we could see some really attacking, aggressive, dynamic racing because everyone wants to try and get some big points on the board at the intermediate checkpoints.
Marking each other out, perhaps, or wait and see. What will happen for the next series? Because presumably with so many teams going down, there'll be a lot of good riders that are looking at going down to the Community League, and the ones that are in the top Premier Division still will be picking them out, presumably looking at who they can take to bolster their roster.
Well, they will. They'll perhaps we'll see some riders changing teams. They want to stay within the Premier Division. As you just said, the teams who are still in the Premier Division will be taking a look at some of the strong riders that they could bring over to their team. But also, let's not forget that they've been up there in the series. They've stayed in the Premier Division. Why change a strong team that you have currently?
Well, I think we're seeing a couple of the women's teams crossing the line right now. Later on in the show, we will be talking about what's coming next week for the final round and discussing the course, etc. But before then, we are going to go over to the GCN All-Stars team to find out exactly how they've been getting on. They do the team time trial tomorrow night in the Community League, but last week they raced. Let's hand over to them now.
It's Tuesday night. It's ZRL o'clock. As you can tell, I'm not Zwifting. I'm gutted to say that I couldn't race tonight. Instead, we're relying on Hank the Tank, Alex Payton, Sebastian Heino, and also Toby as well from GCN App Deutsch. Hank, can you move up a little bit, mate? Move up. You're in the danger zone there. Yeah, can you try a bit harder, please? It's only 500 watts. We need more than that.
I've been in the front group for that in the first half and a half. And then dropped to second group, tacked over the climb. And now I'm in third group, sitting 33rd. Tough one, that. Yeah, fair to say I sweated a bit there. Came out with 34th. With this Zwift racing, never gets easy.
Hank the Tank, as Si coined him there. If there's anything you can guarantee with Hank, it's that he gives absolutely everything, even if it's not enough. I'm sure it will be in the coming rounds, and I have it on good authority that we might have a very special sports director as a guest over the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned to that. And also potentially a very special guest rider on the GCN All-Stars. We'll keep our fingers crossed for that, and we'll keep you posted when we get any news. Right, let's take a look forward to what the riders are going to be tackling on next week's 6th and final round. It's one that Hannah said has never been used before on the ZRL. It's the Countryside Tour on the Makuri Islands, and we've got a summit finish on our hands. 2.5 laps of a 16-kilometre circuit give a total distance of just over 43 kilometres and a total elevation gain of 552 metres. There are 2 intermediate KOM locations on each lap where the feather, anvil and draft power-ups will be available, and then the summit finish is a top temple climb. That's 2.5 k's long with an average gradient of 3.6% but a max of 11. The climbers will be able to strut their stuff here, but with points to be gained at the intermediate points throughout the race, it will be interesting to see what type of riders each team fields on the day. A summit finish, Hannah, there really is no rest for the wicked in the ZRL, is there?
There certainly isn't, and this is where things could all change for the teams in the standings. They're going to want to bring their A-game climbers to this final round.
We talked last week a lot about Harrogate being the toughest of the 6 rounds, but that one to me doesn't look that much easier.
It doesn't look too appetising, does it, when you look at how hard some of these rounds have been, and for these teams, especially with a summit finish, incredibly difficult, but also incredibly easy to get wrong.
Yeah.
If you go too early from the lower slopes of the climb, you could blow before you get to the top and really lose out on those big points.
And we saw a few substitutions, as it were, in various teams today, where today's course was all about raw power, really, wasn't it, and getting it right on the day. Could we see more of a mirror image of the team lineups that we had in last week's Harrogate race that was also hilly when we come to the final round?
I think we could, but also across some of the teams, Canyon Esports, I think we'll see a very similar team to what we saw today. Likewise with Heino, just with the 5th addition to their team, perhaps Melanie Maurer after her World Duathlon Championships and taking her 5th place, she'll be back raring and ready to go to make sure that Heino can seal the deal.
Yeah, as excuses go for not turning up for the ZRL.
It's not a bad one.
That's not bad. As Hannah said, 5th place in the Duathlon World Championships. She's still on her way home from that. Well, all that leaves me to say, as ever, is a huge thank you to you at home for watching our coverage this evening. Another thank you to Hannah as well, once again, for her company with us here at GCN tonight. We'll be back next week on Monday, same time, same place, for the final round of the ZRL Premier Division. We hope you'll join us then, but bye for now.